All right, we're live.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Nebraska Arts Council Grants, Basic Support Grants Review Panel. My name is Sherry Hofshire, and I'm chair of the board. This panel is reviewing grants that are for organizations with annual budgets of $1 million and above. Decisions that are made by this panel will then determine the funding for these organizations, and then will be reviewed by our board of directors at the June meeting on June 10th. So to get started, let's first of all have our panelists introduce themselves. We will start with Dina.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Dina Bennett, Executive Director of the American Jazz Museum in Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you. Kellen?
My name is Kellen Boyce. I am here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm the Executive Director for the Sioux Falls Arts Council.
Great. Mia?
Hi, everybody. Maya Michelson. I'm Executive Director of the Indiana Arts Commission.
And Kenneth?
Good morning, y'all. My name is Kenneth Williams. I'm the Associate Director of Programs at the Texas Commission on the Arts here in Austin.
Great. Mike Markey, our executive director, is with us from the Capitol. Mike, do you have a few words?
I do. Thank you, Sherry, and thank you to the panel for being part of this today. I know that you all have very busy lives, and it's wonderful that you take the time to share your thoughts and wisdom with the applicants. And to the applicants, thank you for the work that you're doing, for sending us an application and telling us about the important work that you're doing in your communities. And as I will always encourage you to do so, I hope you will continue to keep your elected officials informed of the work that you're doing, the difference it makes in your community. And that's certainly at the state level, but even more so and more importantly today, that you make sure that you let your federal representatives know the value of that work and the impact that those dollars bring and what the lack of those dollars would mean for your community. All that's very important, especially now. If you have any questions about that, or would like more information, or would like some help in how to contact your representatives, you can certainly either contact us at the Arts Council or the good people at the Nebraskans for the Arts, and we'll be happy to provide that information to you. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, staff, for working on this today, and enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Rachel, you want to give us our marching orders, please?
Absolutely. So for those of you listening in, just a few things I wanted to review about the procedures today. Know that the panelists have read all of the applications in advance. Each application has a primary and secondary reviewer. Applications will be discussed and then scored by each panelist according to the published criteria, that rubric that is available for this category. The scores are then averaged, and the panel's rank will determine the percentage of the applicant's request that is awarded. It's a mathematical formula will then be applied based on the available funds. Therefore, higher ranking applications receive a greater percentage of their request. And the score received today will stay with you for the next 3 years until you come to panel next time. And just be aware that in order not to unfairly influence the review process, NAC staff, we do not engage in the panel discussion except to add clarification about procedures or specific items when it is appropriate. So you will not see NAC staff involved in those discussions. This is for the panelists. And that is all I have.
Okay, I would just remind you, as I'm sure you have been informed, that you will have a 2-minute intro, and then the reviewers, the panelist reviews will be given, and then at the end there's a 10-minute where you can respond to any issues that arose or questions and answers from the panelists and so on. Before then, the final scoring. Okay. Anybody have anything before we get started? All right, then we will begin with American Midwest Ballet. And would you please introduce those who are representing American Midwest Ballet? Introduce yourselves and your position with the organization.
Sam will have to bring them in from the waiting room.
Yep, they're joining now.
Perfect.
So they did not hear those comments?
If they have the live stream going, they did.
Okay,
If they were
okay.
just in the waiting room, then no.
Are they in now? Sam, are they in now?
Yes, looks like they
Hello.
are.
Okay, American Midwest Ballet, you're on. Could you please introduce who you are and what your position is with the organization? And then go for your 2-minute introduction.
Thank you. I'm Erica Overturf. I'm the artistic director and founder of American Midwest Ballet, and we are the region's professional ballet company. So that encompasses performances, professional performances. We have about 27 dancers in our company that come from all over the United States and make this their home to perform for our community. Next season, we have an exciting lineup featuring Momentum, which is our mixed repertory show. We're really excited to share that we're going to get to do a work by Bob Fosse. It's a masterwork, Sing, 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 that we've been working with their foundation for quite some time. And so we're thrilled to bring that to our audiences. We also have the Nutcracker, which is a holiday family favorite. It draws families from around the area every year, thousands of people that love getting to see this classic. And then next spring, we'll be performing A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a Shakespeare favorite and a really fun and beautiful classical ballet. So in addition to our performances, community engagement and education are really important to our mission. In terms of education, we also have a school of dance, the American Midwest Ballet School, where we train aspiring dancers from 3 all the way through adults, those that just want to dance for fun, as well as those that are looking to pursue dance professionally. And we also really love bringing students. We bring over 7,000 students to our performances each year. For many, this is free of charge, and we also help provide busing to make it accessible for kids to get to experience the arts. Our community engagement is one of the things I'm most excited about because that program has really been growing by leaps and bounds over the last 3 years. It's something we've always worked on, but our Discover Dance program is something that we created about 3 years ago. And it provides weekly dance training to students that just probably would not have access otherwise. So instead of just getting a one-time experience in the arts, like a workshop or a class, which could be really special, they get weekly training. They build relationships with their teachers. They learn how to dance. And that's now translating into providing those students that are interested in pursuing it further scholarships in our school.
Thank you, Erica. All right, primary reviewer is Mia.
Hey, thanks so much. It's always a bit of a challenge to be the first reviewer here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each section in the rubric and sort of walk through my response, my comments based on reading the application, thinking about the sections in the rubric. So starting with artistic quality, under programs and services, wanted to see read a little more evidence of how programs and services are responsive to the community. And that's a specific phrase in the rubric. So I'm looking for that in the application. So no doubt they are, but I wanted to read more specificity around being responsive to the community. Wanted to understand a bit more about how you utilize feedback to inform development and delivery. Wanted to know more specifics about what specific factors drive your decision-making around programming. You have a great mission statement and you use some words in it, such as uplifting, community engagement. I wanted to read more about what you mean when you say that, how that is lived out in your organization, and also how it plays into your programs and services. Under mission, your programs and services clearly support your organization's mission, so good on you for that. Under artistic merit, really appreciated seeing the artistic sample, beautiful selection of a variety of works, and was just a delight to view. In the rubric, it talks about how your artists and programs have significant value to your community. And to understand that, I needed to know more about where your artists are from. So there's an opportunity, I would suggest, in the narrative to give us some indication. You say they're from all over the country. Well, tell me maybe a bit more about where some of them are from, some notable companies they may have worked with, and so forth. That helps me understand value. And then also, I'm guessing in your evaluation process, you ask your audiences how they value the work that you offer. Weave that into your application narrative next time, because I think that helps us understand how your audience sees value in the work that you do. Under planning and evaluation, under program evaluation, wanted to see a little bit more around your evaluation methodology in your response there. It's no doubt it's there. I just couldn't gauge it from the response that you provided. Under strategic planning, really commend you on the focus on inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Really appreciated seeing the accomplishments so far. Wanted to see more community engagement in the development of the strategic plan. I was a little surprised by what I read about how you develop the plan to not see more direct community engagement noted in it. Maybe it was there. I just didn't read it in the narrative. Would also suggest, just for the future, that you place your measures of success under each goal to help us understand how you're going to measure that and how each measure of success nestles underneath a goal. Around development, really appreciated reading about the changing funding environment. We're all sort of living that in this moment. Real evidence of proactive planning. Would like to have seen some specific targets around fund development. Great mix of foundation giving. And looks like there's an opportunity to grow your corporate giving, and appreciated, again, a good sort of development overview. Under outreach and engagement, under community partnerships, evidence of really strong partnerships with the kinds of organizations I would expect AMB to be working with. Would love to have seen a bit more around partnerships specifically targeted toward underserved communities. And I wasn't exactly sure from your description exactly how you partner with folks. So would have loved to see a bit more detail there. Under outreach and accessibility, really appreciated reading about your work with libraries and Nebraska medicine. And I was a little unclear about the study guide. I appreciated seeing it, but I wasn't sure what grades it was for, what education level there. I wanted a little bit more detail on the education guide. Again, did appreciate seeing it, and it's clear a lot of care and thought went into putting it together. Under audience engagement, I wanted to see a bit more active audience engagement activities. It's probably there, just didn't read it in the narrative. And then under advocacy, felt like this section lacked specificity. Wanted to know specifically how you reach out to legislators. Do you call them? Do you email them? Do you stalk them at your offices? Give us more detail around advocacy. No doubt you're doing it, but especially in this moment, really wanted to see more specificity around advocacy. Overall, really good application, and really appreciated reading it. That's all I got. Sherry, you're muted.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Dina? You must be muted.
Okay. Yes, it took me a while to find the button. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I did the same thing. I took each of those categories in the rubric and kind of looked at the application correspondingly there. So, responsive to the community, you offer need-based scholarships to the school, and I wanted to know a little bit more about that. How is that done? How do you decide who gets a scholarship? What are the criteria for the need-based? So I do see that you have students can participate free of charge. Um, I think that's a really good thing so that people can have access. Um, Programs and services support the organization's mission. I think that you're doing that well. You're offering 50 classes weekly. You have your summer intensive. You are presenting some historically significant works and original creations. The value to the community, I guess I have the same question too. I know you reach 7,000 students K through 12, but I was also wondering about how the community is responding, and you take the Discover Dance program to the people. How is that done? How do you decide where you go and who gets to benefit from the Discover Dance program? I see you translated some of your documents into Spanish, which is really awesome. Agree, 27 dancers from all over the country. It'd be nice to get some background on who those people are. Um, okay, let me make sure I'm trying to manage seeing you and reading my comments. Okay, planning and evaluation. You use quite a few kinds of evaluative measures. Uh, do you use social media post?
We do
Yeah.
use social media.
Okay, I didn't see that, but I assumed you probably did. Okay. Your strategic plan focuses on maintaining your artistic excellence and centering inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility into your programs. So I can clearly see the accessibility and the diversity and equity. You talked about some of your the Momentum program and Fosse and Shakespeare. Um, Looking at your budget, I see you're losing two major funders as they sunset their foundations. So, how are you going to um, cope with that? You're exploring an endowment. Outreach and engagement. Agree, how do you partner? I see you have 30 local social service agencies. Um, Let's see, proactive plan for audience development. You have several programs outlined, matinee performances, dance story time at local libraries, Nebraska Medicine, and you have 3 levels of ticket pricing. So you say flash sales will draw in new audiences and you provide complimentary tickets. Attracting new and underserved audiences. Um, you seek to identify barriers to participation. So I heard you say that for some students, you provide transportation. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you provide that's really good. Um, so you're also your Discover dance program. You go into you go to the people. So I guess I needed to know a little bit more about that. I probably said that before. And then, of course, your local policymakers and public support. You are reaching out to your state legislators and arts advocacy. And of course, you invite them to come to the performances as well. Yeah, okay. Alrighty. I think that's really about it. But yeah, I thought it was a good application.
Okay, then we'll let Kellen and we'll move to you. Kellen, do you have anything to add to what's been said?
Well, first of all, the first two reportings were great. So I felt like I missed something. So I was like, oh yeah, this is great. So I'm glad that we're going through this. Yes. The one thing that I was curious, if there was any attempts, and I didn't see it directly in the, and maybe I missed it, we're just showcasing diversity on the stage versus just participation. Just hearing that kind of talked about a little more clear, if there's opportunities for that. Just, there's adaptive dance, there's all sorts of different things that we hear about. So I was just curious if that was like a part of the strategic planning or like your programming that you were trying to do that.
Maybe she can answer that in the last couple
Oh,
minutes, okay? So pose
absolutely.
it as a question and Erica can refer to that later, okay?
Yeah. And then just I guess because some if you're strategic planning, maybe you have opportunities. So you're currently in a strategic planning cycle. So I was just curious if what the furthering of that, for 2027 to 2032, if there was options, if you guys were like, even when that starts for you guys. I was just kind of curious about that.
Okay, anything else?
And just I really appreciated the translated brochures. It just sounds like you're also like accommodating things on the fly, not just within your strategic plan. So like when the transportation provider like changed that, you changed your setup time so that it would accommodate that. I just thought that was just really nice that you were flexible. Sometimes strategic planning creates these restrictions where we don't become as flexible as we could. So I appreciated that.
Okay, thank you. Kenneth, any further comments?
Yeah, just a few. I think my fellow reviewers hit on a lot of the notes that I took as well. So that was nice to be in agreement there. I think you guys have a really fun and exciting season ahead. It's definitely something that I would want to go see personally. So I think that's lovely. I also really appreciated the Spanish translations that are offered. I would be curious to know if that's a level of targeted work that you guys put into everything that you do, or if it's more specific based on the specific program. I really appreciated seeing the attention to DEIA in the strategic plan. I would encourage you guys to include bios of your leadership in future applications. I think this application just had a sort of staff listing, maybe a little bit about what that specific role does for the organization, but it would have been nice to have a little bit of background on those individuals. And then in terms of the budget, I would just recommend in the future to separate, as best you can, separate out administrative and artistic salaries. I think those things were grouped into the budget, which makes sense. I know there's probably a lot of folks that are doing both sides of that work, but some level of detail would have been nice in that budget, especially around some of the general operating or other cost as well. But nice application. Really enjoyed it. Oh, and I really want to point out and thank you guys for including the audio-visual samples that show your work. It's really important to get to see those arms and legs and feet and the technique. So I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Okay, Erica, then you have time to answer any of the questions that brought up that you want to address.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Sarah, feel free to jump off your mic if you want to join me. This is Sarah Maloney. She's our development director and was also a professional dancer. And so she is a great asset to the company as well. So thank you so much for this feedback. It's always really helpful to hear what really resonated with you, what you want more info on. So I took a lot of notes so we can continue to do the best that we can with these applications. One thing I did want to take the opportunity to talk more about is our Discover Dance program, and tell you a little bit more about how that works. So 3 years ago, we started this in a partnership with Girls Inc. because they have been a really fantastic longtime partner. We've been bringing girls to the shows. We've been going to them and doing workshops on site. And we decided to pilot it with them. So it started off with a class of about 15 third grade students that were taking all year. And we tried to really see what they needed, how it worked, how to approach things. And we learned a lot from that. And then we have started expanding the program initially within Girls Inc. to other ages of girls, then to their other locations. And for this coming season, we've now added 7 community partners. So I'm so thrilled. And again, it's one of those things that we adapt it as we go to what people need and what they want. So we might have one idea of what it's going to be. Like we thought it was going to be third grade, and then they take the second year, fourth grade, fifth grade, and that's how it would go. But we've learned that there is a really strong appetite for this type of access to dance. And so we've got everywhere from preschool through high school now with 7 different partners, and it's grown from 15 to projected to be 175 students. Plus, we bring them into dress rehearsals. We bring them on site here to our studios too, and they get to do some mentorship with their peers. So it's just been a super rewarding experience in that way. And we adapt each program. So what we're offering to those preschool students is different than what we're offering to those high school students. So sometimes we shorten the class or we divide it into smaller groups. Like we see what's working and what's not, and then we change it. But the overall underlying idea of sharing dance with more people, but also just adapting it to what they need is really been fun. So that's a little bit more about that one. Let me see what else. Oh, in terms of the major funders, thank you for pointing that out. So we're in sort of I know the overall arts funding situation. I'm thankful everyone's here today and we're still all doing our good work to move forward. In addition to all of that, we have our 2 biggest funders are sunsetting their foundations, and that's about a $400,000 loss to our little over $2 million budget. So that's pretty significant. However, we've been doing a lot of work proactively to figure out ways to fill that gap moving forward. Of course, in the short term, we do have some reserve funds to help us. So it's not a situation where we'd be looking at closing our doors. And then we're doing a multi-pronged approach to really cultivate new donors, our existing major donors, to ask them if they are able to increase their support, because we've been, growing our programs and increasing what we're able to do in the community. And then also through our school, growing our school. And this year we just added a performance of the Nutcracker, which we were a little nervous about. That's a big deal to add more performances. And we had a great turnout from the community. Everything was sold out. And so that helped us with some additional of our earned revenue as well. So kind of tackling it in all those ways, and we're sharing it with everybody, this story, so that we can get everybody to work together to help us kind of meet this gap. But I think we're going to figure it out for sure. In terms of the arts advocacy that you asked about, I know that is so important. And so we have been doing everything. We've been doing the calling, we've been doing emailing amongst our staff, but we've even been sending it out to our whole network of like our dance school, our students that are in our shows, our board, like everybody, and asking them to do the same. And yeah, everything from calling to sometimes I feel like the arts advocacy, the Nebraska, I'm struggling on the name for just one second.
Nebraskans for the Arts.
Nebraskans for the Arts. They sent out a really great one that made it super easy as well. So when we get one like that, that's really easy for people to take part of too, I make sure to share that out more broadly with our stakeholders in our organization, because, the more voices, the better for that. Let's see some other things we asked about. In terms of strategic planning, yes, that's something that we're thinking about, but we have not started that next planning cycle yet. However, I think, what I've seen, of course, our organization is always changing and growing, but our overall goals tend to remain pretty intact of our overall mission and what we're trying to do. So, Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I can address a couple questions that I saw or heard, I guess I should say. As far as our study guides go, so we are so fortunate to have more than 100 school partners across public schools, private schools, charter schools, home schools, And we receive a lot of interest from all grade levels for all of our shows, which is really exciting. So when we develop our study guides, we typically try to develop them in a way that will reach the broadest group. We have additional activities that are attached to them, and they are developed so that teachers can kind of pick and choose what is relevant to their age group. So one of the activities might be something that's good for younger kids. One might be something that's a little more in depth for older. And we really try to use that document to expand upon state arts goals and also just introduce kids to what a theater experience is going to be like. Because for many of them, this is their first time in a theater. So what's the etiquette in a theater? And we also do that through our school programming. We have hour-long shows. Typically, we'll do one act of a performance. So they might see the first act of the Nutcracker, but prior to that starting, our staff comes on stage, talks to the students, shows them some pantomime they might see, teaches them in that moment how to respond to something they like, how they can applaud, how they can say bravo, that they don't just have to sit silently, that they can really enjoy the experience. And then as far as maybe clarifying a little bit how we interact with our community engagement partners. So those are the people that we go to help distribute our free performance tickets. It is one aspect of what we do. So they're great partners. We reach out to them for every show. We say, hey, we have this many free tickets to give. Can you help connect us with your clients so that we can make sure the people in need are getting it? And the organizations that we work with are really a broad range of social service organizations in the organization. We work with Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We work with RISE. We work with Heartland Family Service. We work with Boys Town. So we're reaching people with a variety of needs in the community and working with the staff members of those organizations to help best target where those tickets are going. In addition to that, our community engagement manager, Colgan Larson, then in turn reaches out to those groups to say, hey, do you want to do a little bit more in depth with us? Do you want us to come to you for a workshop? Do you want to potentially work towards becoming a Discover Dance location? What is your level of interest and how can we best meet you where you're at? So just having that broad range to work with really helps us get a whole group of people that otherwise might not be able to attend the shows. One other thing, Eric, I wanted to throw back to you, if you could talk a little bit about the work we've been doing to kind of diversify our dancers and the auditions and what festivals that we've been attending to really broaden our staff.
Okay, we're going to need to wrap up, so take a minute and finish up, please.
Great. Well, I heard some questions wondering about our artists. They're fantastic. They do come from all over the country. We count it every once in a while, so a typical number is like from 19 different states. But many of them are have degrees in dance, so they went to college for it. Some of them have danced in other professional companies. And they just have varying but really wonderful backgrounds. And so dancers can come here and audition for us. But we've also, in the last several years, made it an important point to go to other locations in the country to help attract a diverse pool of dancers. And so we work with the National Master Audition, that's in Los Angeles, and also the International Association of Blacks in Dance, and their audition process moves around the country, but it really lets us connect with many, many more dancers in the field. And so that has been really important in continuing to grow our artist roster.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Erica and Sarah. Appreciate your comments, and thank you to the panelists. That will be the end then of this one, and we will move on. The next is the Bemis Center for Performing Arts. Oh, we were going to take a couple of minutes for you to go ahead and make any changes that you want to do for the panelists on your application. Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready.
Thanks, Sherry. Thank you, Sarah and Erica. We'll have you go ahead and leave the Zoom. If you want to watch the live stream, please feel free to do that. But thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate your time and, of course, your wonderful support of the arts and the ballet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Panelists, as you're wrapping up, Sam, we can probably go ahead and let the next one in, since there's sometimes that little lag in the waiting room and people popping in.
Panelists, like I said, thumbs up that, okay, I see Kenneth, I see Mia, Dina, and Kellen. So we're ready. So if Bemis Center for the Performing Arts is,
I see him connecting.
okay. All right, are they in?
Good morning, everyone.
Ah, okay. Go ahead, introduce yourself and tell your position so that the panelists know. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Chris Cook. I'm the Executive Director of Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this morning. First, I want to begin by thanking all of the panelists for the time and energy dedicated to the selection process. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the entire board and staff at Nebraska Arts Council for their hard work in this process. It's very meaningful to us as Bemis Center has been a longstanding beneficiary of operating support consistently from NAC. And so on behalf of our team and our board, I would like to say thank you. At this time, we don't have any major updates to our application, just a couple of housekeeping items. First, in the fundraising and development section of the application, we have filled the capital campaign coordinator position that was mentioned in that section as the organization is in the planning phase for an upcoming capital campaign. And then also we submitted in support of our application our 2023 financial audit. If NAC would like our 2024 audit, it would be available in June. So I'd be happy to send that along once it's in our fingertips.
Okay, so those are your introductory comments, Chris. You're ready for us to move on, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Then Kellen, you are primary reviewer.
Thank you, Sherry. Yes, so, and this is always discovery for me, so I feel like when I can do these, this is like the deep dive and I get stuck on stuff. So if I like totally miss something, that's because I was like really excited about this. And the Bemis Center, it's been around 44 years. You guys are, serving the diverse communities in Nebraska. Some of the things that I just really focused on within just like your programming, which was the artist resident hold on. And I'm also getting these confused because we went through so many, but the residency program
Right.
really spoke to me as being just such a keystone of just being in the Midwest and like having those opportunities and like what a beacon of light that's got to be for Nebraska. I wish we could have that in South Dakota, but that does not exist. So a lot of this was just like very pie in the sky thinking, but it's amazing that you're already implementing all this, offering spaces for artists with what I was writing is just with few output or restrictions. And that is, I think one of those things we fundamentally miss sometimes is because we just don't allow that exploration and everything's got to have a product or something coming out of it. So like those things really spoke. I mean, you guys are doing all the right things. It seems like in addition to that, the other programming that you're creating for the audience members to come in and experience what's happening behind the walls is also utmostly important to you, just with the opportunities that you're creating through your programming. strategic planning. You guys are committed to short and long-term strategic planning. I thought that was great. You're demonstrating that you're trying to improve upon with feedback loops and always having kind of a continued growth and sustainability model, and making sure that you're like checking on everybody as well as just doing great work. And then I know these are probably everyone will go a little bit deeper. So this is my like top level surface. Evaluation looked great. Also with outreach and community engagement. So within the strategic planning, you state that you are working with local organizations, providing bilingual approaches to communities, including wall labels, offering additional accommodations not listed, and continue to improve on access through data-driven approaches. Programming appears to be free and accessible. And I'm not as familiar with the similar offerings in the area, but your approach seems to be to put the end user or the audience member as like a close second to your residency program. So it was just the things that kind of kept coming up to me, and just overall really impressed on the robustness of the program that you do provide, and just kudos all around.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that feedback. Yes. And
Okay, Chris, we'll let you have comments at the end. So we'll go through the panelists and then you can make any notes that you want to have some time at the end to respond to. Okay, thank you.
perfect.
Okay, Amia?
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciated reading this. Some things that I'll just touch on from the three sort of main rubric areas. Under artistic quality, you note in your application that recent exhibitions have navigated timely social political issues that are extremely important to Bemis audiences. Wanted to know more about how you discern this, because I couldn't get a sense from your evaluation process how you assess that, or how you get insight related to, again, what are timely issues. I mean, obviously, if one looks around, one could probably identify some, but I was curious to know more about the evaluative feedback loop that drives that. I would also say the accomplishments of the residency participants post-residency is notable and speaks to the high quality of the residency program overall. So big tip of the hat there. Under planning and evaluation, really strong evidence of connection between your evaluation and process for the residency program and the residency program itself. I wanted to see a little bit more around the connection between evaluation and, say, the exhibit program or other aspects of your programming. I just missed that in the application. Strong commitment to planning, thorough strategic plan. Big tip of the hat on KPIs. I love KPIs, and also the implementation dashboard and the reporting cadence, because so many organizations don't do that. So big tip of the hat there. Really appreciated seeing specific percentages around your development plan. Big shout out there. In the outreach and engagement section, wanted to get a clearer picture of your outreach. Your response didn't quite get me there. I'm sure it's there, just wanted to read more about it. And then in the audience engagement section, you talk about how you ask members about what their preferences and experiences and suggestions are, but you don't note that you ask non-members those questions. And that feels like, if you're doing it, tell us you're doing it. And if you're not doing it, maybe you should be doing it. So that was a missing piece for me in the outreach and engagement section. And then, and this is going to be a recurring theme for the day for me, around advocacy, really wanted to see a little bit more sizzle to the steak of advocacy. Tell me more about what you're doing specifically in the advocacy space. And again, appreciate seeing what you're doing. But in this moment, I'm sort of pushing on everybody to do more. And if you're doing more, just tell us about it. So that's all I got.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Kenneth?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I thought the organization has a really wide reach with their varied programming. I really appreciated all of the detailed information we got about what the organization does artistically. It seems progressive and interesting and weird, which is a compliment in my opinion. And the way that you guys represented yourselves in the application made me want to go see the facility and the institution. I thought the you guys have a really great website. It was really easy to navigate, updated, and offered a really good perspective of what it would be like to visit, which I really appreciated. I think you guys have good development plans and excellent varied income sources. The Mellons investment is really, really wonderful to see, and some good individual donations as well. It would have been nice to see some bios of the leadership in the application itself, although that was available on the website. So I did get that information there. Really commendable translation for materials in Spanish, and I thought you guys had nice letters of support. I think all three were from artists, though, so it would have been nice to get one from a community or an education partner to kind of round those out.
Okay, thank you. Dina.
Yes, so responsive to the community, you say that you're a community response organization and the community is the driving force behind your programs. And I guess the way you do that is you involve community organizations and leaders in your education and outreach programs. The value to the community, you do offer free access to educational and cultural experiences, and you do serve all ages, backgrounds, and identities. I thought that you had a good strategic plan, 12-year long-range strategic plan. I thought that it was well done and the different sections were clear. And I understand that you're going to launch into your quiet phase of your capital campaign. Um, I will say, just like Kenneth, I did notice that all your support letters are from artists, so it would have been great to read from the public or school or community organizations that you serve who benefit from your services. But I enjoyed reading about it, and you're doing really great work. So thank you so much.
Okay,
you.
thank you. All right, Chris, you're on. Anything you want to respond to, answer questions, so on.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate everyone's feedback on our submission and am very open to responding to some of the comments and having a dialogue with you all if time permits. I think first and foremost, we are very much sensitive to the issues that are at stake within Nebraska and within the region. How do we become aware of these issues? Obviously, we are part of the community, but more broadly, we regularly work with advisory committees that are composed of area artists, area cultural organizational leaders, and other community members that, depending on the topic or the program that the advisory committee is assembled for, will bring in other forms of perspectives and expertise. We also, in addition to advisory committees, I should just add a little more color to that. Our most recent one was assembled in support of an exhibition that just closed this past Sunday called The Last Safe Abortion. So that included a number of community members within the health and reproductive women's rights space, but also from artists and a broad range of partners from area organizations that work specifically within healthcare. So those were the individuals that comprise this advisory committee. And we also, throughout the year, will work with a broad range of community partners, whether they be individuals or community organizations. This is something that we regularly do, whether it's to help inform our exhibition program or our education program. More internationally, we do rely on expertise from an advisory committee of experimental musicians and sound artists to help advise our experimental sound and music program, and more specifically, the bookings for our music venue, which is called Low End. So that's an international advisory committee that we rely on for recommendations on talent that we are interested in bringing in. So there are several different comments in support of our residency program. That is very much Bemis's legacy program. The organization, when it was founded, started as a residency program. Over the last 44 years, our programming has expanded to include a robust year-round exhibition program, educational programs, and our low-end music venue. I would say that our primary impact within the state of Nebraska is through the latter three programs. It's the free public offerings, whether it's education, exhibitions, or concerts. Although the residency program is very much highly rated, it's one of the top 10 in the country, and we very much provide a space and a philosophy where creative experimentation and process comes first, with zero expectations put on the artists that participate. And it's a fully subsidized program, providing plenty of resources, both financial, administrative, and physical, for the artists to use while they're visiting Omaha, Nebraska, and working in an urban situation, which is a distinct aspect of our program, and it is not a retreat in the woods. So it's a very different opportunity that opens up the artists with to engage our community and do that in a thoughtful and self-driven way, as desired. We did, I believe this was mentioned in our application. We recently, just over a year ago, established a new position, and it's a full-time position, and it's our community engagement and experience manager. And because the concept behind this position was to ensure our impact and to ensure that we were reaching underserved audiences within the metro area. So we wanted to create a position that would specifically do that and help us build new relationships throughout the community and steward existing ones, both with area nonprofits, but also individuals that we see in alliance with in terms of what we're doing and what the community is interested in an organization like Bemis to provide to our audiences. And lastly, I do want to call out, we just implemented this in January, where we provide an audience survey. So it's a post survey after attending, whether it's coming through our exhibitions during gallery hours or attending a public program or a concert, where we provide a follow-up survey, getting a broader range of voices and feedback on the types of activities that we present. It's taken a while for us to get there because since we are free admission, we don't collect a lot of data as visitors come into our facilities. And then so creating new systems to capture that has been an ongoing strategy. And finally, we're able to roll that out.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it. That will end your session, and the panelists, if you'll take a few minutes to adjust any scores that you want or make sure they're what you want, thumbs up when you're ready, and we'll move on. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Sam, if you could let in film streams while we're adjusting scores, that would be great.
Yep, they're joining now.
Perfect.
Okay, I've got Kellen, thumbs up. Michael, Kenneth, Michael. Kenneth, Dina,
Excuse me, Rachel, who did you say was next?
Film streams.
Film stream? Oh, yes, film streams. Yes, thank you. Okay.
and
You made
Mia,
me
are
panic
you,
just a little.
Yes,
Mia,
yes.
are
I was
you
like,
ready?
what?
Mia, are you ready? Thumbs up? Okay. All right, then we are ready for film streams. Whoever is here, would you please introduce yourself and your position in the organization?
Hello. Oh, go ahead, Casey.
Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm Casey Logan. I'm the managing director of Film Streams, and I'm joined by our executive director, Maggie Wood. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you and, of course, answer any questions you have during your review of our application. We're excited to provide some updates on some items that we included in our application, some fun stuff that has happened since then. First, in late March, we officially launched our Centennial series celebrating the Dundee Theater, which is one of our 2 cinemas. The Dundee Theater first opened to our community in December 1925. And so we are doing a year-long series celebrating its history and along with it, the history of cinema. We started off with a sold-out screening of Fritz Lang's Metropolis, with a live score by the Alu Orchestra that was part of that screening. We had sold out show with 300 attendees there. We continued that with It Happened One Night as we moved into the 30s, starring Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. We had another 300 attendees for that event. And we're going to continue that throughout the rest of this year as we head into the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, and so on. It's a great series. It's a great opportunity to celebrate the cinema, our community, and we're also working with a number of partners. We worked with the Durham Museum on It Happened One Night. We're looking forward to this next one with the Red Shoes. We're going to be partnering with the Omaha Academy of Ballet. So lots of fun stuff happening there. Second, we are getting ready to launch our outdoor series that we mentioned in our application. That's going to be happening starting later this month near our Ruth Sokoloff Theater location and in partnership with the Builders District neighborhood and Creighton University. So we're very excited about that. And then finally, just a note, we mentioned in our application, our education programming, in particular, our school to screen programming for that provides opportunities for schools and teachers to integrate film into their curricula. We mentioned that we were expecting to serve upwards of 4,000 students. We're actually on pace to be serving closer to 5,000 students. And that's a program that has schools certainly around the Omaha metropolitan area, but also coming from as far away as Columbus, Nebraska. And so we're really proud of that statewide reach for that program. I know I'm over time. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to join you today and, of course, answer any questions that you have along the way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Casey. And at the end, you'll be able to answer any of the questions or comments that the reviewers make. Okay, so let's go right to it. We start with Kenneth.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the application. It was a really exciting read. Congrats on the 100th anniversary of the Dundee this year. That the lineup for the Dundee Hundy, I thought seemed really thoughtful and fun. It seems like you guys have really well-rounded programming schedule and you're showing a variety of films across your different screens. I think you guys are exhibiting some clear and lasting partnerships in the work that you do, as evidenced from that events and collaboration section, which is really nice. The outdoor screening seems like a really great idea and exciting to attract new audiences to that growing neighborhood. So that was really, really great to see. I also appreciated seeing the more culturally specific programming that you guys are doing, especially with the Cinemateca series. I would be curious to know if there are any kind of future plans for similar programming like that. I think the artistic decisions you guys are making really seem thoughtful and responsive to the community and to the media arts and film industry as well. I think you guys are doing a really good job of building your year without sacrificing any kind of artistic integrity for bigger box office numbers and things of that nature, which is really nice. I thought your printed materials, like the newsletter and the study guide, were really slick and easy to follow. Really high quality work there. I think your strategic plan includes some reasonable goals, and it seems like you are making smart and responsive decisions to reach those goals as well. I really would have liked to see a physical tour of the space in those work samples. I also don't think that we were directed to your website, so I didn't get to look at that. I don't, it might have been included somewhere else. I don't remember seeing it, but it's not something that I took the extra time to go and look at because we really want to make sure that our reviews are contained to the application itself. So just something for you guys to consider in the future, linking us there. For a lot of audiences, especially ones that might be new, that's going to be one of the first places they go to before they see you in person. So it would have been great to see all of those spaces. I think you guys seem to be making really nice strides in development, especially after a really hard hit during COVID. Congratulations for bringing back the gala. That's a really exciting thing, but also I think, in my opinion, something that really speaks to the financial health and the growth that you guys are experiencing post the pandemic. I think you got a nice, solid sized staff and board of directors. I was a little curious to know exactly how many staff members are working at the organization. Just looking at the budget line for those salaries, it seems like that was high compared to, I think, the bios we were looking at. Again, I didn't look at the website to see if maybe, there are many more staff members listed there. I think you guys have strong foundation support in the income section of the budget as well, which was nice. It's really exciting to hear that the School to Screen program is expecting to have 1,000 plus more audiences involved, which is really laudable and commendable. Yeah, and I think that's all that I have. I think let's see, the section on advocacy was fine. It seems like you guys are reaching out to those folks. I'd be curious to know if you ever have anyone come and attend a program in person or a staffer or anything like that, to see what kind of successes you've been able to make there.
Okay, thank you, Kenneth. Kellen?
Yes, thanks, Sherry. And Kenneth, thanks for your comments too. I feel like I'm not going to be able to say too much more on top of that, but for the programming specifically, I felt the school to screen programming was really well thought through. Just like kind of those little things that we don't think about, but the providing free lunches so that you don't have hungry, unruly children trying to sit still in seats is super smart. There's also, you mentioned that your programming is aligned with state standards. And I think that's really important too, is we're like trying to get teachers to, bring students outside of the classroom by making that as accommodating as possible and thinking of the teacher as like the number one barrier because they're the ones that are going to do it or not. And so like if you give them no excuses to say no, you say, well, we're going to do this and this, it really does make that happen a little smoother. And I know they appreciate it as well as, I mean, no teacher wants to be known as the uncool teacher that didn't do the school trips, but I think like anytime you can do that, it's very important. So I was very impressed on that and like to the length of which you thought about that. And of course, it's always ongoing, right? But that I thought was brilliant. I wasn't quite I didn't quite understand how you translated kind of that like robust programming over the summer months, like what happens in that space. Um, I'm not familiar with like busing or if like the city provides free public transit during the summer for some students or what that looks like, but I was curious like what attempts you would make to continue to grow those relationships with those students past just coming in for the classroom. Um, Strategic planning, maybe it looked like you had taken a break. I was kind of unclear. Started in 2025. It says, looks like you took a break and planning in 2021. but you continue to survey and evaluate programming. So working through that gap. Sorry, these are just doing my quick notes. And then for outreach engagement, it's like you have a lot of outside groups that you're working with. And maybe was curious on like developing internships or mentorships, or if there was any intention to work because it's like a job, right? You can have a theater job. It's kind of like there's some natural connections there to like provide some internships and opportunities for students to take their passion a little further and actually make some money. So I was just curious if there was any in that, and maybe I missed that. So
Okay, is that?
that's all. Those are my
That's it.
comments.
Okay, great. So a couple minutes for Dino.
Okay, alrighty. So under artistic excellence, responsive to the community, you serve 4,000 students, partner with community groups. You present films with cultural diversity and social significance. So I liked reading that because it sounds like you're trying to make the screenings relevant to the audience that you serve. The part of your mission, which is providing an alternative to commercial cinemas by making programming decisions based on artistic merit and social significance, I think is really awesome. Sometimes we want an alternative experience rather than the commercial experience. So I thought your evaluation techniques were pretty comprehensive. Your strategic plan, I do see the gap. I think that, yeah, 2021 was the last of the plan, and you're going to pick back up in 2027, I believe, and go through 2030. Outreach and engagement. It was neat to read that you have a community engagement committee, which evaluates proposals. So that's really inclusive of your partners and panelists from the community. So I liked reading about that. You're attracting new and underserved audiences. It says that you have tracked the percentage of women directors that you use. And also, I didn't know if I missed it, but how much do your programs and events cost? Are they free? Do you reach out to underserved communities? How is that outreach there? So thank you so much. I think that's the end of my comments.
Okay, thank you. Mia?
Hi, so any additional comments I've got are just pretty minor. Under artistic excellence, shout out for using a committee of community members to help select some programming. That's always great to see, to bring the community into programming decisions. Love seeing that. Under planning and evaluation, I would love to see more. You outline some robust evaluation strategies. Wanted to see the connection between the evaluation and program development. How does the evaluation then inform the programs and services you provide? It's great that you evaluate, and that's really important, but then close that loop for us and talk with us, share with us about then what you do with that information and how it strengthens your existing programs or helps you drive the development of new programs. Didn't see KPIs or measurements. I know you're, again, in sort of a liminal space related to planning, but something to think about for future plan. Would have wanted to see more detail around development goals, as in looking to grow a particular development bucket by a certain percentage or dollar amounts. Always useful to help us understand kind of your thinking in the development space. Under outreach and engagement, really appreciated seeing the strong engagement you have with local officials in the advocacy education space. Would encourage you and would love to see you take that a level or two up to make sure that you're putting the same attention to elected officials, because unless you're getting significant dollars from your local government, it's great to engage with local officials for sure, but making sure that your statewide and or federal folks are feeling the love too, especially in this moment, I think is really important. So that's all I've got.
Great. Okay, then it's back to you, Casey. Anything you want to respond to or ask them, or it's all yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for this. Great feedback, great questions. A few of the things I'd note, Kenneth, you'd mentioned our Cinemateca partnership and series and other, similar collaborations like that. That is one of our longest regular partnerships. That's one that we do every other year. And there are some similar partnerships that are like that. We participate in a Science on Screen program where we're able to collaborate with a number of organizations locally, and that's something that's ongoing. We're also getting ready to launch an exciting kind of a new type of programmatic partnership with the University of Nebraska Medical Center around some programming around public health. And so that's something that we're also looking forward to be ongoing. Education was something that you all had talked about. We really appreciate your note about providing free lunches and really talking about, like, we really want to make it as easy as for teachers to participate in that program as possible. So one of the things I would add to it, and I'm not sure we mentioned in our application, we may, is that we also really, like, transportation, of course, is like a point of friction. And so there are grants through the Nebraska Arts Council for bus grants. It's also something where if teachers reach out to us, that's something that we support too, because we really want to make it as easy as possible to participate in the programming. Some notes on outreach and engagement. We do our events, most of our events are ticketed. We do have an accessible, affordable ticket price with discounts for students, seniors, teachers, military, first responders. We also do free events from time to time. And we do have some different programs that offer free tickets and even concessions. We have a Whitman Youth Engagement Fund that provides free tickets and concessions to youth in our community. And so we work with a number of community partners to get those tickets used. And a lot of times it's the first experience that the kids will be having in our theaters, and sometimes the first experience that they're having in any movie theater. And we also work with a variety of partners to extend free tickets for different events that we've got coming up. And so that is something that we're always thinking about, particularly around some of our special events. And then I think it was a question about advocacy too. We do invite and try to engage our local, statewide, and national elected officials with events that we have. And we do have officials that will attend, in some cases, even participate in panel discussions for part of our programming. So that's something that is also on our mind. I appreciate the notes on evaluation and kind of connecting that to program development. Honestly, I think the way that we talk about our program and the way that we talk about the way that a quarter comes together, that's something where we really can take that more into consideration of how does the data that we're collecting inform some of those decisions. Now that said, we do survey after different events, and that's something that is immediately part of conversations that we're having as a team, as we're hearing what people thought about their entire experience and what the film, the panel, everything. And so that's something that we're constantly looking at as we develop that next program, so that we're looking to improve each one based on that kind of evaluation. See, I was taking notes. These were all such great comments and questions. And I appreciate the note on our community engagement committee. That is something that has been a really collaborations, and then that committee has been something that's been a big part of our organization from really the beginning. And so we looked at that committee to really help us really program and help us connect with our community. And so that's something that we're always looking to refine and employ that committee as best we can.
I'll also add, thank you. The strategic planning with the gap, that was something that was brought up by a couple of you. Our longtime founder left in 2020, and then there was another executive director here for a short amount of time, and I started in May of 2024. So we've gone through some changes in leadership, and we're refocusing on what that strategic plan will look like moving forward. And then lastly, you were talking about details around development goals. The return of our gala, our feature gala, is one of the big ways that we're looking to support the growth of our programming, as well as looking at a corporate sponsorship strategy as well. Yeah, and I just want to echo Casey, great feedback, great notes for us to be considering as well.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Casey. Really appreciate it. And that will end that session. And reviewers, you want to look at your scores and make any adjustments, and then thumbs up when you're finished. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got Mia, Dina, Helen, and okay, we are done. So we have caught up on time. That's very good. So we have a 5-minute break scheduled here. So everybody go stretch your legs and refill your drinks.
And we'll come back at 10:20. When you do come back, just turn your screen on. That way we know that you're here. Elizabeth, are you back as well?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Can't
are we
lose our
ready?
minute taker.
Is everybody here?
We're still missing Kellen. But Sam, maybe you can start letting in the next. Ah, there's Kellen.
Okay.
You're good. Sam, you can go ahead and let in Lead Center.
You should be in now.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, so we will invite the people from the Friends of Lead from Lead Center to introduce themselves and tell us the position with the organization. And then you have 2 minutes for an intro, and then we'll have panelist reviews. And then at the end, you'll have the opportunity to answer any questions that were raised and clarify anything. Okay, you're on.
Great. I'm Bill Steffen, Executive Director of the Lead Center for Performing Arts and the Chief Artistic Officer. And joining me is Jane. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Jane Schermeyer Hansen. I'm the Education and Community Engagement Director at the Lead Center.
We're very thankful for this opportunity today to share with you and talk about the Lead Center for Performing Arts, Nebraska's Performing Arts Center. We serve Lincoln and also have statewide programs. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and entertain the people of Nebraska through the performing arts, and we fulfill our mission by presenting iconic and artists of distinction in a wide variety of art forms with performances and educational outreach. The Lead is a major anchor for the Nebraska arts community, including providing a venue for organizations ranging from Lincoln Symphony Orchestra and Omni Arts to dance studios and the Nebraska Music Educators Association with their statewide conference at the Lead. The basic support grant that the Nebraska Arts Council provides is really essential for us to be successful and is a major foundation in our sustainability and operations programs and services. And one note, our season is now finalized and there have been some changes from what was submitted, but artistically is very consistent with what was in our original grant application. We take a lot of pride in providing arts experiences for young people who otherwise would not experience the arts. We have accessible ticket prices, including half price for almost all of our season shows, including Broadway, and that's for children and youth. We have nearly 100 partners and collaborators in our community that we outreach partners, early childhood education, K through 12, college, adult to seniors. We have a space for everyone, and we serve the entire state. 30% of our audience comes from outside of Lincoln, 25% west of Lincoln, and we work very hard to be welcoming and accessible to all people. We again want to thank you for the opportunity to visit about the Lead Center. I'm grateful for the support that the Nebraska Arts Soul provides, and look forward to this conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. Primary reviewer then is Dina.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. Looking at artistic excellence, you do have a diversity of programs, your Broadway series, theater and dance performances, comedy shows, classical piano, jazz performances. You're responsive to the community. One of my questions, but you've already answered it, is are these programs cost prohibitive to some communities access? And you did mention that they're you have accessible tickets and such. Value to the community, educational programs, camps, workshops. You reach 8 Nebraska communities through your Teachers Institute. And so one of my questions was, how are those 8 communities determined? And then what do the teachers take back from the Institute? Planning and evaluation, you track patron activity and consumer trends for the past 20 years. You do surveys, monthly newsletters, relevant and timely strategic plan. I have Forward 25 is just one step. Forward 2029 with planning a long range plan for 2033 beginning in 2028. Okay, I need to look back at that. So I see you're going to develop a 5-year finance plan with regard to budget. And the university supports 5% of your annual budget. So you're affiliated with the university, auxiliary unit of UNL. Outreach and engagement. You said that you reach well, your strong community collaborators, excuse me. You have 100 partners, proactive plan for audience development, the low cost performances, the international involvement with music and dance, can lead to some audience development opportunities, your use of Instagram and TikTok for audience development, attracting new and underserved audiences. You're developing new audiences, and you did mention 30% of your patrons are outside Lancaster County, free tickets, low cost performances. You're fully ADA compliant. That's really awesome. I do not see a plan for how to go after and reach these underserved audience. Do these efforts go beyond working with the schools to reach the underserved? And then it looks like you educate your policymakers, and public support seems to be, you have a good plan for that, and you're doing some good things in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Kenneth?
Yeah, I just starting with basic grantsmanship, I thought this application was really well written, had some nice narratives to it, especially that opening narrative really laid out the artistic highlights of the organization, showing the varied programs and offerings, which was really nice. I think you guys have some nice culturally specific offerings as well woven into the season. I thought the work samples were okay, but it felt like a bit of a missed opportunity not to be linked directly to y'all's website. I think luckily there was a YouTube video included in one of those work samples, so it was nice for that to see the space. It was maybe 42 minutes long, so just considering some editing in those materials for the evaluators. I thought the educational opportunities for youth and adults both seemed varied. They go on year round, which was really commendable. You guys have a lot of strong and great partnerships. I thought the strategic plan, although I thought was a bit modest, but it seems understandable with a lot of achievable goals. And I appreciate the recognition to invest in a long-term process for the audience development. I think the proximity to the college and that base of audience is a really great asset to have. So it's nice to see the desire to cultivate those members more. I think you guys have a really well-experienced staff, very capable administrative hands that you're working under, which is great. I thought the budget expenses could have used a little bit more itemization. The marketing line specifically, I think that was all kind of bundled up together. So I would be curious to know what it is you guys work on in terms of those marketing efforts. I also just want to recognize the social media commerce for audience development. I think that's a nice addition. In my opinion, not something that you should hang your marketing hat on. So I hope that you guys are trying to reach those different generations in multiple ways. And I thought the application included really nice letters of support to underscore the importance of the work that you do.
Okay, thank you. Kellen?
Yes, I would agree. Great application. There's so many of these. It's like, it's nice that they're just kind of straight and to the point. So I really did appreciate how well this was laid out. So I was just kind of curious, the things that I had brought up, and again, the programming, it looks great. Just that this is you guys offer Broadway productions and works from other large organizations. I'm assuming you're like a venue that other groups can perform there and have that. It was just unclear with those partnerships, if those organizations are receiving lower fees and say you would bring in an off-Broadway, like what does that relationship look like? It wasn't as clear, and sometimes those venues play such an intricate role in what everybody else can do with their programming. So I was just curious of what that relationship looked like, a little more of a deep dive on that. And then for planning and evaluation, there's like a big focus on audience numbers. Obviously, hind ends and seats is like what we're looking for. And then how you're deciding on those performances based on success. And I was just curious, kind of playing into those evaluations, if there's any more of a deep dive to kind of do more one-on-one conversations with individuals, alone evaluations and surveys. I mean, if people actually do take them, a lot of times they're kind of hurried through there. So just looking at other attempts for communities to say if they're like, this is interesting programming for them or not. Sometimes that is never the ones that we need to fill the seat. So just curious about that. And then the other piece, again, with being a venue, like other opportunities, you're talking about being ADA compliant, making building improvements so that more audience members can attend these shows. That's super important. But are you curating best practices for inclusion for audience for those organizations that you're working with outside? So if you're providing for your shows, interpreters and things like that, are there any ways that you can kind of provide those services to those other organizations that might be struggling to create that all-inclusive access that your venue can have? I know those could be two different things, like from the programming that you're bringing in directly versus another group bringing it in and renting your space. But just curious how you were leveraging those opportunities to be more of a full service kind of a venue.
Okay, thank you. Maya?
Okay, thanks. Under artistic excellence, this applicant actively asks your community what you want, so what they want. So that's a big bravo for that. In fact, that sort of was woven throughout the application, that you clearly are engaging those folks that are participating in your programming, and that's fantastic. And you, in fact, actually ask them for anecdotes around how their lives are impacted as a result of attending a particular performance, and that's a huge shout out. That those stories of impact are so powerful, and so again, it helps you develop programming and also helps you in case making. So huge shout out for that work that you do in that space. Under planning and evaluation, really strong commitment to evaluation, really appreciated seeing that. Wanted to know more specifically about how you leverage this information for program development. Tell me more about that. Good evidence of planning, wanted to see some KPIs and measurements in that planning process. And wanted to see a little bit more specifics around how you plan to address upcoming funding challenges. And then under outreach and engagement, really strong commitment to community collaboration, and so appreciate how you tie this work into your organizational goals. Solid strategies for attracting new audiences, and really big shout out for your success with college audiences. That's a real tough demographic to attract. And so if you're having success there, that's great, and so glad to see it. Lastly, solid advocacy, education work, and really appreciated your active participation in Nebraskans for the Arts. That's really notable, and appreciated seeing that call out in the advocacy section. So that's all I've got.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're back to you, William and Jane, and anything you want to answer or response you want to make.
Sure. Well, thank you for all that feedback, encouragement, as well as questions. So I'll try to cover all those questions as best as I took notes. In terms of on the expenses, let's see. Okay, sorry, I had my so I'm going to ask Jane to visit a little bit about the teachers initiatives and the question related to that.
Yeah, surely I can do that. So our Create Teachers Institute takes place every summer. It's a week-long institute that teachers are invited to apply to, typically as cohorts. And so they'll bring like 2 or 3 teachers from their community. And while they're there, they work with teaching artists who are specifically working on arts engagement in the classroom. And so they're able to take some practicable and implementable tools into their classroom on how to use their curriculum, use these practices within their kind of state standardized curriculum. And so it's an application process for those teachers. And we also work with our 3 Kennedy Center partner communities. We are a Kennedy Center partner in education. And so those 3 groups typically participate every year.
On the topic of cost prohibitive ticket prices, one of the things, you know, besides our half price tickets, we also provide discounted tickets, you know, for identified groups. We also have a program called the Lead Performance Fund, where we have partnerships with Boys and Girls Club. And Jane, I don't know if you want to talk about some of our partnerships that providing access to people who don't normally have access to the arts through our performance fund.
Oh, yes. The Performance Fund is actually one of my favorite programs that we offer. And it is open to organizations within our community that work with underserved families and young people. And it enables them to attend our performances at the Lead Center free of charge. And so and one of the things that I think is important about that is it's not only just for the young people, it's for their families. So the entire family gets to have the experience at the Lead Center. And yeah, and so the way we do that is, like I said, we reach out to all sorts of nonprofit organizations and really kind of like the hubs of our community in order to connect with those folks.
On the planning related to expanding our outreach to underserved communities, one of the things that we've been implementing is partnering with each community. Say the Asian Cultural Community Center here in Lincoln is very vibrant and actually represents a wide variety of people of color and our populations who have immigrated to Lincoln. We have a large immigrant population in Lincoln, including the largest Yazidi community outside of their native homelands, and partnering with the different communities to create cultural experiences together, identify artists that they would be excited about presenting and saying, how would we like to present this together? And we're currently have plans for a Latin celebration this fall that we're curating together. You know, we're not saying, hey, we're going to present this show and why don't you come to it, but say, what artists should we bring? Let's talk about that. What artists that are local can be part of this and those kinds of things. And so we're planning on, you know, hopefully doing more of those in the community, so that in addition to our international touring program, we also have a program that really celebrates our local culture and artists with some additional artists that might supplement that if we feel like that would help expand those opportunities. I really appreciate the comment about the work samples, and that's noted. On the marketing question, our marketing budget is fairly large because of our Broadway program. You know, half of our budget is Broadway. Most of that money comes in and out. You know, we don't make very much of a profit on Broadway. You know, we're a little different than some. We presented the Band's Visit. We have SUFs coming up this spring, and neither of those shows are profit generating. And we actually underwrite them with significant local dollars. And some of our profit generating programs help pay for those. But on the marketing topic, most of that is Broadway. Partnerships. What are some of our partnerships, and how do we, you know, what does that mean? Well, a lot of variety. Some of those partnerships are really simple, and some of them are really in depth. I identify mention a few of them. Angels Theater Company is one of the companies we have a more in-depth relationship with, and we've been the director of the Angels Theater Company actually directed one of our premiere plays that we had this past fall. We're partnering on a new work with them this coming spring. And we, beyond providing them discounted space, we help promote their shows. We talk about how we can help develop new work together. And it's just a really vibrant relationship that's been really great for the lead. And we have a Grow a Show program, which helps develop new work. And that partnership's been really great with Angels Theater Company. Lincoln Symphony Orchestra is in residence at the Lead Center. And we, consistently, besides providing some free space from time to time, we partner on marketing with them, and we do educational outreach together. We have a children's show concert that we're going to be taking things to a new level in terms of trying to reach more students that have never experienced and families that have attended a classical music program. And then let's see here, the other. Some of them are education related, partnerships. Just a really wide variety of the partnerships. In terms of spreading our inclusion and services to our partners, anytime someone makes a request, we do our very best, to provide services, whether it's interpreters or access. We had a company called Kinetic Light come as part of our season in recent years, and they really inspired us in terms of being accessible to every type of accessibility you could imagine. We explored, whether it's sensory, vision, hearing. It was just a really deep experience, and so we've tried to continue to build on that. And every quarter we meet and talk a little bit about accessibility and how are things going, what things could we grow on. Let's see, how do we use the feedback on program development? Well, one, we read it, and we really do try to implement that into our programming. And it's really valuable, particularly focus groups. And we're big believers that we don't know everything. We know a lot from our experience, but hearing from our patrons and in different focus groups and different parts of the community is so important for us to really serve the community in a vibrant way. And so we do our very best to take that feedback, whether it's our advisory board, whether it's a focus group on programs for young children, and make it a key part. It is a key part of our planning as we move things forward. On addressing funding challenges, that is definitely challenging. I've been in the industry for a long time, and I feel like this is one of the toughest years we've had. I'm really thankful that we have great supporters individually, and I anticipate we'll be leaning on those individual supporters more than normal. But one of our philosophical ways of how we've maintained a balanced budget at the Lead Center is to have a diverse source of income. So we certainly will continue to try to broaden our sources of income so that we're not dependent on any one single source in an extreme way. And just being creative in identifying programs that can have a positive income. We do a lot of positive income to balance out all the things that have to have underwriting, and I know that's true about a lot of nonprofits. But we're continuing to try to be creative and inventive, and to ensure that we have these amazing, unique, distinctive programs while also making sure that we're sustainable and can continue to provide the services we do for the long-term future.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Bill and Jane. Appreciate it. That will end that session. Reviewers, if you'll look at your scores and see if you have any other adjustments, and then thumbs up when you're done. Thank you again, Bill and Jane.
Thank you.
Sam, if you want to start letting in the next people, that would be great.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Okay, everybody, I think I got thumbs up from all of you. Okay, then we're ready to go on. Jocelyn Art Museum, would you both identify yourself for the panelist and what your position is? And then you have 2 minutes introductory. The panelists give their comments, and then you have time at the end to respond, answer questions, and so on.
Great.
For it, Jack.
I am Jack Becker, the Executive Director and CEO of the Joslin Art Museum.
And I'm Nancy Round. I'm the Director of Learning and Engagement.
So I will launch right in, but thank you for your time and your efforts on behalf of the arts here in the state of Nebraska. I can say that the Joslin at this moment is acutely focused on what it means to be reopened after an expansion and a renovation. We are implementing not just a new building, but we're updating programming. We have a new strategic plan, a new brand, a new website, orienting a lot of new staff, new volunteers, and all that comes with that. We really think that we opened in September, last September. We see the first 18 months as this critical time to understand what it's like to be reopened. We're about halfway through that first 18 months. And this is a critical time to think about like ongoing evaluation and learning from, everything from the front desk to the gallery experience, to understanding programs, exhibitions, making sure resources are aligned in the right way, and how can we be really nimble at this time to respond and to make changes if things are working or could be different. And we're really sort of embracing that moment of change. We've had great attendance. We've had over 160,000 people here since we opened in September. This year alone, I just learned that we've had visitors from 329 zip codes in Nebraska, and there are 616 zip codes, so we feel good about that. We've had great response locally and nationally. I'm getting personal notes from people. I'm having people send me like little works of art to thank me for their time at the Joslin. And as I say, we're really sort of focused on the program and what we're doing now, and really think about our vision, which our vision is sort of to broaden our collection, invigorate our programs, bolster our organization, and open our doors wider to everyone. So I will let you all have your conversation. And again, thank you for your work on behalf of the arts in Nebraska.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Then we will start with Kellen.
Thanks, Sherry, and thanks, Jack, and for your amazing application, the Joslin Arts Museum. So I'm from South Dakota. So again, this is like I feel like I need to get in my car and come to everybody and see all these new things that are offerings for, I think, the Midwest in general, not just Nebraska, but it's just incredible to read and to learn about all this. So I appreciate your time and effort in putting your application together. As far as programming, from what I'm seeing is you're creating these amazing opportunities. The majority, if all, what I'm finding for your programming is free admission, access, which is highly important in your new offerings for your new facility. So commend you for keeping that free and open to the public. It just goes on and on and on. So, I mean, I think you do a really great job of capturing all the audiences that you're providing free tours in English and Spanish and ASL. You've got school tours, public talks, a lot of interactions with students, which is highly commendable because getting them into those spaces is very difficult, and engaging them there can be just as hard. So there seems to be a lot of programming that's geared around your education, other community programs that you have. And I'm kind of sorry, I have little notes on these because they were all so impressive. I'm like, I don't think I can say too much for questions, but overall, great programming. I did have a couple note here just of that it's inclusive, open to all. You provided like ADA compliant spaces that are creating access for people, planning and evaluation that you continue to engage short-term, long-term planning, which is great. Keeping a variety of evaluation methods from surveying to observational data, an attendance matrix, going into outreach. I mean, I felt like this particular application I didn't have a lot of notes on. So I kind of spent a little more time just like learning more about your organization from like the ground up. And I think you guys have a amazing process. And so that is all I have to offer on this evaluation.
Okay, thank you. And then secondary is Mia.
Thanks. So I'll jump in. I'm also not from Nebraska, so so my response will be, again, reading the application as someone from outside the state. So under artistic excellence, I would really encourage you guys to add just a few sentences at the top of your narrative to tell us exactly what this museum is and what it does. Because the work samples you provide didn't quite, I had to work at it just a little bit. So I would suggest, again, teeing up the application, especially for those of us who are outside the state, giving us a sense of exactly who you are and what you do. You shared quite a bit about programs and so forth, and I appreciated that, but give me a sort of a 40,000-foot view of who you are and what you do. Also in that vein, I would suggest in your work samples that you provide at least one link to your collection and your current exhibits. And that would have been really helpful. And again, helping me as an outsider understand who you are as an institution. You mentioned in your that your program development considers communities the museum has historically struggled to reach despite close geographic proximity. Boy, that really piqued my interest. And I wanted to know what communities those were and what you were doing to serve them. So just an opportunity to kind of fill in the gap there, because you opened that line of inquiry and didn't quite answer it for me, or at least what I could find. Clearly, the artists and programs offered are of high artistic value. I wanted to see some data on the perceived value from your visitor evaluation, because I'm betting you asked those questions, but tell me how your visitors or those you serve get value from your services, because it's one of the evaluation scoring rubric criteria. I want to make sure that you answer that. Under planning and evaluation, wanted to know more about the connection, about the data and evaluation work you're doing, and how your planning efforts incorporate that. So I was missing that in the evaluation section. Solid planning process from the strategic planning standpoint. Always love to see metrics and targets. Didn't really see that here. So there's an opportunity, I think, to add a little bit more around how you're going to measure success or what targets you've specified for your strategic plan. I noted in your financial that 31% of your revenue comes from endowment earnings, I think, if I read that correctly. I had questions about that and feels like a higher number than I might have anticipated seeing. So wanted to know a little bit more about that. And the lack of itemization in the budget kept me from getting a clearer picture sort of from the income side. Around outreach and engagement, I appreciated the use of the advisory committee. I assume the advisory committee helps you determine education and outreach priorities, but would have encouraged you to specifically state that. Again, did appreciate seeing it, just wanted to know a bit more about how you were using it. And then under advocacy, really appreciated the advocacy you're doing locally, but wanted to see more and more direct support of statewide and federal advocacy and education. So that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dina?
Hello. Artistic excellence. So I see that you do your learning and engagement initiatives, which I think you included as a sample, provide for individuals of all ages, abilities, and school programs, your programs and services that support the organization's mission. I see that you have quite an offering, diverse offering, public talks, luncheons, studio classes, and the teen mentoring program. I thought that was really awesome. And of course, ASL is provided. Value to the community. it says that you generate meaningful programs that reach target audiences and expand access to the arts. So I was wondering about how you target your audiences. I'm going to move down to the next planning and evaluation category. So it was nice to see that you all participate in the Art Bridges Foundation's Coves, which is collaboration for ongoing visitor experience studies program, to help you with your collecting and analyzing and reporting on visitor experience data. You have a new program, strategic program, and you're recommitting to some of your continuing priorities and new goals. So yes, as you said earlier in your opening statement, you've got a new mission, new vision, new values. So that's really quite something. Congratulations for reopening, being able to reopen. Outreach and engagement. You work with the library. Programs include visualizing literature, book discussion group. Those are very inventive endeavors. So let's see here. Attracting new and underserved audiences. You have a Native American Advisory Committee. And then you serve the visually impaired through audio interpretation. And then you have the Seven Arts Movement, which deals with multisensory exploration of the artwork. So, and I was wondering what other multicultural communities you may reach out to. Let's see. Someone made a comment about your statement about who have historically not been reached by the museum despite the institution's close geographic proximity, such as North and South Omaha. So I took it that North and South Omaha may have communities that need more outreach. You have strategically placed signage, which is great, billboards, spots on the Spanish language radio. That's a great idea. To increase access, and then your website has Spanish translations. So thank you very much for the application. And it was
Okay, thank you. Kenneth?
Yeah, I would just echo the congratulations on reopening this past year. The number of audiences and visitors that you guys have seen since that reopening is a really great achievement. So I hope that feels good to you guys. I thought the description of upcoming exhibitions showed a real commitment to showcasing local artwork and pushing the boundaries of traditional art, which is really commendable. I agree with what Mia said about the work samples all leading to the website. There's a lot of information to look at there, which is great. But it would have been nice to see a copy of an exhibition book or some other material that you guys produce around the programming. I also agree that the budget lacking the itemization hurt the application a little bit. It would have been nice to get a more clear landscape on the finances on both of those sides. There was one note, and maybe this was just the casual use of the word, but I think the board members being comprised of influencers. And so I was just curious how you guys were using that specific word. I think, it's a really broad title to have or these days. So just curious a little bit more about that. And I thought the letters of support from the community partners were really nice. Would maybe encourage you guys to include a letter from an artist in future applications.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jack and Nancy, you've got about 10 minutes to respond.
Great. I'll just pick up on that very last question about board influencer. So I think what when I got here, this is an institution that went through a major governance rehaul. We had a board of 52 people that was disengaged and rather elderly. We downsized that board to about 20, 22. I think as we serve influencers, we are trying to get folks, not everyone has to know each other to be on this board, coming from different communities. We have people from Lincoln, we have people from Iowa. We have worked hard to build a younger-ish board. At the same time, we put on ex officio the head of the Young Advocates Program, our guild, and just different spheres of interest. And that's, I think, what we kind of mean is like, who has ties, that I don't have and others don't have. So that's how we're working through that. Maybe I think we can jump into the question about the communities near us that we would like to serve. And I can let Nancy talk a little bit about North and South and other things.
Sure. North and South Omaha are kind of demographically in Omaha audiences of color. South Omaha is Hispanic community largely, and North Omaha is a Black community. And that's who they are our neighbors more or less. And that's who we're really trying to reach out through Access for All. That's where we're putting those billboards and that message that we're always here, free for everyone. We're also extending invitations to organizations in those communities when we do those monthly events, Nights at the Joslin and Artastic Saturday, which are monthly thematic programs. In our community room, we're inviting just one organization. Please come and kind of be our special guest that night. And we, welcome them and just kind of give them a little more attention and say, come and try it out and then come back. So that's one way we're trying to reach that North and South Omaha. When we talked about evaluation and coves, we're just really beginning to get that data. So there hasn't been much analysis yet, but I just glanced at the last 90 days of that data. And in the Net Promoter Score, 85.6%, which is really high. And of 8 categories where visitors say, up to 10 points, we have 9 out of 10 in all 8 categories. So that's everything from I felt welcome in the galleries to I had a good cafe experience to I thought it was a good value for my dollar, which is no dollars. So anyway, so those are just like broad categories, but then there's tons of data about all the demographic data that we've never been able to capture. So it's going to be really helpful to us as we collect more of that and have time to sit with it.
You want to talk about your committees?
Yeah, I'm not exactly certain if one important committee made it into the application, into the proposal, but we do have a Learning and Engagement Advisory Council. And that is a group that works with me and others on learning engagement staff. It's 25 people who we've been working with, meeting quarterly since right when we closed for the expansion and building project until today. And half are from schools, everything from homeschool families to public schools to higher ed, and half are from community organizations. And so those have been folks who helped us just sort of pause and reflect on where we've been and establish together, where we want to go and how we'll get there. So they're a really critical resource for the work that our department's doing.
And I can talk just a little bit about the budget. We appreciate that feedback about a more detailed budget and the comment about endowment. And I mean, I think that our endowment is still woefully inadequate for an institution like this when I benchmark against my colleagues in the Midwest. So yes, we have grown that endowment to be around 30% of our operating budget, but I would argue that when I think about my colleagues in Indianapolis and in St. Louis and other places where there is significant either city support or endowment support, that we are still on the low side of what would be great if we had a larger endowment to support operations. And then I think
I was going to just mention one thing.
Yeah.
Dina, you mentioned the mentoring program.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an extraordinary program. It is off-site and we enroll about 700, so I wish, 70 students who come year-round twice a week. But we're growing that program starting in 3 weeks here at the museum. And so we're going to start having freshmen and sophomores who start the program here at Joslin in our studios with access to the collections, both days of the week when they come. And then as they age, they'll move off to the studio and have more independence. But it's a way for us to grow and a way for that program to really connect to the museum, because it's always been a little tricky since it's off-site. They would make visits here, but I think they think of themselves as their own thing. And so now I think it'll be really solidified that this is a museum program.
Thank you all for your questions. Are you muted, Sherry?
Anybody have anything else? Okay, thank you, Jack and Nancy. That'll end that session, and we will let the panelists check their scores and give me a thumbs up, yeah, after you've made adjustments. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I've got Dina, thumbs up. Kenneth. Helen. Sam, do we have anybody from Connecco in line?
Yep, I just let them in.
Okay. Mia, are you ready? Okay. All right, then I would invite who is the representatives from Connecco to introduce themselves and let us know what your position is in the organization.
Good morning, I'm Chris Kircher. I'm the interim executive director of the Connect.
Hi, I'm Tara Hall. I am executive projects manager at Connecco.
Okay, then the process is you have 2 minutes to give us a quick intro. The panelists will then review the application, and then at the end, you'll have 10 minutes to respond to their questions and anything else you want to bring up. All right, go for it.
Thank you. I'm Chris Kircher. I have just served as interim executive director since the beginning of April. Prior to this, I've been on the Connecco board for the past 6 years. And in a past life, I was head of corporate affairs at Conagra Foods and ran our foundation as well. So I was asked to step in this capacity as we search for a new executive director following the departure of our prior executive director, who left for personal reasons, the loss of a family member and some responsibilities around that to take her out of state. The board has long been thinking about a situation like this and was prepared to step up. I didn't realize I'd be in this role. It's a role I've filled before, not here. It's been a great experience and it continues to be, and I think the transition is a very smooth one. Tara, you want to?
Yeah, I would just say I've been working at Connecco since September, but previous to that, I was Connecco's assistant. I'm sure you know Ree and June founded Connecco. So I had a lot of background in sort of their thinking and was really excited to come over to the Connecco organization side. And it has been an exciting journey so far. The transition I feel very comfortable with. Chris has been great just in helping us stay stable, and we've got a great team. Over the past 6-8 months, we've built a good team that I think will keep us doing the Connecco thing.
That's been one of the saving graces. Coming in and really getting to know the team in a way that not every board member has an opportunity to do, although they should, I think. You really find that the team is a strong one, a committed one. We're making a difference. I'm just trying to right now keep the momentum going that we've established under our prior leadership and make sure that the staff is able to contribute because I'm leaning on a pretty strong staff right now, which is good.
All right, so we'll start now with the review, and first up is Kayla.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. So again, not familiar with these organizations, but super excited to learn more about them. And this was another application. It was fun to go through, just realizing these places exist, just not too far down the road. So programming they're saying is typically guided, creating unique opportunities, featuring extraordinary artists and innovation, enabling interdisciplinary and interactive exploration, which was the things that really stuck out in my mind about your application and about your programming, is just those different opportunities and like how you stand yourself apart from other organizations, which I thought was really interesting that you added that in there, as well as the kind of the interesting dilemma that you might be in is like not having a director, but it seems like this is always every nonprofit's dilemma. So I appreciate you mentioning those things, but it seems like as far as programming and your planning and everything, you seem to have a really good understanding, like transitioning between leadership and director roles and like what needs to be done with that. So that wasn't as concerning for me. So also the onboarding, sorry, I'm just kind of reading my jumbled notes here. Just onboarding new roles, key employees, board member, director, board of director planning and encouraging sustainable growth. All that looked really good. The one thing too, I was a little confused, and again, I'm not as familiar even as we're getting this, but just the general work samples that were provided, I didn't get as much out of those as I was hoping. I wasn't quite clear on like how everything worked through. And we were kind of keeping to the information that we were given. I later looked and I was like, oh, I can understand a lot more on my own exploration journey of like how the foundation and the actual museum kind of interact. And maybe that's clear for the other panelists. I just wasn't as clear on that, as well as just more work samples that could kind of paint a clearer picture of what was happening at the museum there. And the other thing just would have liked to know, like, you specifically talk about the Bruce Baisley installation and just on how that plays an important role with aspects of your outreach and engagement. Someone just from outside the programming might not understand all those things and how they tie together. So those were my comments there. That's all I've got.
Okay, Mia?
Thanks. Just some additional things I would add here under artistic excellence. There's an opportunity to tell us more specifically about how your programs and services are responsive to the community. Under mission and under artistic merit, clearly the artists you're presenting represent high artistic value and quality. Would love to have known more about how the community values that quality, or how the community views the value of what you're presenting. I think there's an opportunity then to tie your evaluation work into that quality question as it relates to the community. I'd echo what Kellen said about artistic samples or work samples. It's really hard to gauge quality of anything from a news release. And so showing us website, even just a PDF of some images of the work would be really helpful in that area to help me understand quality. Because I also am from outside and don't know the organization at all. Under planning and evaluation, appreciated knowing that you're in the process of rethinking your evaluation process. What I didn't read was how you plan to loop in your learnings from evaluation into your program development. I'm going to guess you're planning to include that, but I didn't read anything about it. Under your strategic plan, appreciate that you're trying to cover all the bases. I felt like it was pretty ambitious based on kind of where you are as an organization related to transition and so forth. So I'd suggest cutting things down into some bite-sized pieces, because you've asked yourself to do a lot in a time of real transition for you as an organization. Under the financial piece, the high reliance on foundation gifts just kind of made me pause and take a beat there. So just a little concerned about diversification of revenue and income for this organization. Under outreach and engagement, really impressive number of community collaborators and partners, and you provided a really solid description of how you work with each of them, which I really appreciated. Under outreach and accessibility, wanted to know more about who your outreach efforts are targeted to exactly. Wanted to get more clarity there. Under audience development, or sorry, audience engagement, wanted to know some more specifics there. It felt a little vague to me. And then really under the advocacy space or advocacy question, did not really see evidence of a current plan for educating state, local policymakers. I recognize that you allude in the response that you're working on something. Give us some indication of specifically what you're thinking about, even though you may not have something specifically underway at the moment. So that's all I've got.
Okay, then let's go to Kenneth.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I agree with a lot of my colleagues have said already. I did find this application to be a little bit challenging to review artistically, especially as it tied back to the review criteria that NAC uses. In terms of grantsmanship, I would just recommend you guys to try to avoid using acronyms without kind of explaining what they are first, especially for those of us who are not from the community or as familiar with the area. I also want to echo the comment about the work samples that were provided that didn't really give a great sense of the artistic merit of the work that you guys are doing. But I also recognize that you guys are in a really tough transition right now, having just completed a transition not very long ago. So that should be noted. Let's see. I also think, and maybe you guys are already planning to enact this, but I saw in the application the idea to bring on an FTE director of finance, and I think that is a really smart decision for you guys, especially as an organization with a budget over $1 million. So really hope that is something you guys can bring into the fold in the future. Really nice to see that you guys have the goal of expanding your board. I did have some questions about the budget expenses. Looking at doing a little bit of math there, it seems like 75% of those expenses about really go directly towards administrative overhead. And I found it challenging, and maybe this is the nonprofit versus the foundation difference, to see where the artistic expenses and the cost in the budget there are. Yeah, I appreciated you guys, the work that you did in the application and the work that you're doing now to sustain the organization.
Dina?
Yes, so under artistic excellence, I see there's youth programming, creative camps, and I made a note, seems there is more of a focus for young professionals and university and faculty partnerships. So I was having a hard time seeing how the organization responds to community needs. Let me see here in planning and evaluation. I see you're developing an outcome and evaluation plan that's now in draft form. And so you do surveys, interviews, staff observations, metrics, indicators and public programs and community partnerships. And then you said outputs are tracked. And so I wanted to know what outputs and how is that done? You are going through a leadership transition, so and trying to become financially sustainable before you launch your long-term strategy in 2026. Outreach and engagement. It was really neat to see some of your collaborators. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep messing up that word, like autism and architecture connections, as well as your usual schools, the Rotary Chamber. Your proactive plan for audience development. You say that digital accessibility is a priority, but I was wondering about outreach activities. And then attracting new and underserved audiences. You do have free and low-cost programming for those who don't have access. And then it looks like you do reach out to some of the policymakers, elected officials, but the executive director, perhaps when you get a executive director will develop a plan for engaging public officials. So that's what I
Okay.
have.
All right, Chris and Tara, you have approximately 10 minutes to answer any questions, make some responses.
We have 10 minutes.
Starting now.
Yeah.
I do want to, if I may.
Yeah.
Just go back to talking about the Bruce Beasley and some of the artistic exhibitions we have and how that impacts community. One or so is a relationship, a partnership that we have with Mecca, who in Omaha, they have taken on sort of rehabilitating the downtown space and turning it into a green space. Part of that is a sculpture park that they initiated. And through a partnership with Mecca and the International Sculpture Center, we've been able to bring in 5 different artists through a 3-year period to both show one work in the sculpture park, in the mall downtown, in the park downtown, but also each of those artists gives an exhibition at Connecto. So it's a way in which it connects Connecto to like the greater artistic community and some of like the exciting artists that are doing great work, but also brings us right into the center of the community in Omaha. And that relationship has really connected us and created a path to a broader audience. So I just wanted to bring that up as a way that, you know, those artists' exhibitions are making an impact in community.
The other point I'd make, which might help for those of you who aren't here or who haven't been to Omaha to see the Connecto, is some people refer to it as a museum, but it was really created as an open space to foster creativity, not just in visual arts, but in performing arts and all parts of the community. So yes, we have exhibits here, like the Beasley exhibit that Tara referenced, that is tied into the display that Beasley has done for the general public over in the Central Park here in Omaha. He also did an installation here related to that. So it's making that community tie, and we have that exhibit in for a period of time, but the exhibits here are always changing, and the programming is really one of the things that's the most important. And sometimes it's difficult to show because really what's coming out is ideas, right? So one thing we're working on that may help kind of think about what we do here is we're putting together, we've established a partnership with one of the major providers who you would all recognize, but who I'm not at liberty to share with you the name right now, worldwide provider, is doing an exhibition on artificial intelligence. And for us, that is a big issue. It's got both pros and cons, right? So we're using that exhibit in September as the centerpiece for a series of programs over a course of 2 weeks that will involve policymakers. It'll involve the different parts of the community here in Omaha that are really looking at AI very closely right now. Might be medicine, education, public policy, urban planning. It will be a conversation to capture the pluses and minuses of using that intelligence going forward and looking ahead. So really, we're convening people to incubate ideas, share what they're doing, but also bring together conversation on where this particular tool goes in the future and how that might look in Omaha. That's an example of one of the programs. So we'll have visibility, we will have some things to look at, but a lot of what comes out of that is more ideation. than anything else. I don't know, Terry.
No, I think that's great. And, I definitely hear you all about the work sample quality. I didn't participate in the grant application. So looking at it today, I realize that doesn't even give, a good glimpse of what it is we do. Because even with like the Bruce Beasley exhibition, there are programs, to Chris's point, that we develop around that. We had a French-Cuban dancer that came into the space and used where these sculptures are. He used the entire space to perform this incredible journey, performative dance that was unlike anything I've seen in Omaha or otherwise. And so each thing that we do is actually just boundless opportunities to also create experiences and programs that folks can come into and immerse themselves in. We had a Fabrics of Africa exhibition early spring, and that was curated by a woman from Kansas City, originally from Kenya. That exhibition ran for about a month and a half, and we ended up having 6 different programs between dance, indigo dye workshop, a couple of, opportunities for people to sit down and ask questions of Suzanne Gunn, the curator. And so it can be tricky to describe what Connecco is, because while we have exhibitions and some of them are related, it's also everything that gets generated through each of these opportunities that we, develop in the space. So it really is trying to create as many experiences as possible for people to spark their own creativity. And so that has no real restriction on what it looks like. And that's also what's fun about being here, is that it's all possibility, and the way that it manifests in the space can be really beautiful.
But to your point about targeting our efforts and measuring our impact and figuring out what next step should be, that's something that we need to do a better job of, in my eyes. One of the things that this role has been is sort of the lead in creativity, but also the lead in operations. And I think when you're looking for a new candidate for an ED, that's often the challenge of a lot of nonprofits, where they've got a programmatic side and they've got an operational side. And trying to find someone who's good, equally good at both, results in a pretty shallow talent pool. It's hard to do. I think we might consider, in addition to your comment about the financial director that we have on the radar screen, I think if you find someone who's a little bit more operationally inclined and paired with a strong creative person who can deliver on the programmatic side, that's where our growth opportunity is, right? There's other challenges along the way. I'm seeing many low-hanging fruit opportunities, looking through it from a new lens, so to speak. But I think that's one area that we're looking very closely at right now, and even working with the board to ensure that they're in agreement that that would be a good pathway forward.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. So we'll end that session now, and the panelists can review their scoring and give me a thumbs up when you're done. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Okay.
Okay, we've got thumbs up for everybody. So we now have you get a 10-minute break, guys. We've got 11:40 is our next session. So go stretch your legs. Rachel, do you have anything you want to say?
I was going to say, our next applicant is in the waiting room. So if you want a 10-minute break, that's fine according to the schedule. If you want to come back 5 minutes early, that's fine too. Our next person is here. What would you like to do as a panel?
I think I'd appreciate a break.
But a
10?
5-minute break rather than a 10-minute break?
Yeah, I can do a 5-minute. Yep.
Okay, let's do a 5-minute break and we'll start in 5 minutes. Perfect.
11:35.
Perfect. Thank you.
Um, Kellen and Elizabeth, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Perfect.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay. The next up is Lincoln Orchestra Association, and I would invite our attendees to identify themselves and what their position is with the organization.
Hi, I'm Barbara Zock Lee. I'm the Executive Director of Lincoln Symphony Orchestra.
Okay, Barbara, you have 2 minutes to do a quick.
Can I also introduce our board chair is here?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Wilchin, and I'm the president of the LSO board. And I'll actually start if that's okay.
Okay. You have 2 minutes for an introduction, then our panelists give their reviews, and then you guys will have 10 minutes to answer questions and respond. Okay.
Wonderful. So as I said, Jennifer Wilchin, president of the LSO board. Last year, we took a retrospective look at the past 20 years. And I just wanted to highlight some of the growth that our board has found the most meaningful. We've grown from 9 concerts to 14. And in 2023, we're so happy to announce that we completely paid off our long-term loan to the Lincoln Symphony Foundation. That loan was a result of a merger between the symphony and the chamber orchestra back in the 90s. And it was so special to LSO that we added a chamber orchestra concert to our season the year after we paid that debt down. The other thing I'll highlight is that we are so proud in our investment in our orchestra salaries. It's 11% higher than any of our colleague orchestras. The musicians are the highest priority in our budget. And I'll turn it over to Barbara.
Hi, thank you. I'm just going to make a couple of logistical notes since the application was submitted, just a couple of updates. So since we submitted the application, we have confirmed all the dates with our venues. We've signed letters of intent with all of our soloists, and we plan to officially announce the season on Friday. I can upload to you our season brochure. I think in our attachments, we gave you last season's brochure. So I can send that if you'd like, but nothing has changed significantly from the list of programs that we sent. Also, when we submitted, our board was in the process of finalizing our strategic plan. They've since done so with some small adjustments to the draft that we submitted. We also made some adjustments to the budget to reflect that we don't have confirmation yet about the lead center contract performance. So you'll see that 44,000, there's a reduction equally in both income and expenses to reflect that. We also have some contingency plans in place to reduce expenses next year if necessary. The one other thing I'll mention is that as part of our evaluation process, we've started to include the orchestra in our evaluation of programs and services. So we sent a survey to all the musicians, which has resulted in some new connections for our social impact program and changed some of our priorities regarding rehearsal venues. So we've really found their feedback to be valuable. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We'll get back to you. And now we'll start with primary is Dina.
Hello, nice to meet you. So I'm going to go by the different sections of evaluation that we used to look at your application. So program services responsive to the community. It looks like you have partnerships with schools, the city library, and the Harmony in Healing. I have in here, is Harmony in Healing a Lincoln Symphony program? So there is a social impact program that provides free concerts for the underserved, and some of your underserved categories are immigrant, refugee, at-risk youth, military, and rehabilitation programs, as well as veteran services. I thought that was a very comprehensive list of populations served. Programs and services support the organization's mission. So you have a variety of programs. You do concerts, 11 concerts, 7 are classical, 2 affordable 1-hour family concerts, puppets, pops, annual holiday. And you also created a composer in residence position. Value to the community. I have it. My notes here, it seems as though the symphony is trying to reach a number of communities and doing a good job. You're curating experiences that are relevant to the community. So I wanted to know a little bit more about how that process works. Does the community have input in that? Evaluation techniques, post-concert reviews, surveys, follow-up with teachers, first-time audience member surveys. I thought it was interesting that you request feedback from participants of other symphony programs. And one of the samples you provided was some kids' responses to performances. So enjoyed reading those. So you said, I think you said that you updated the strategic plan and in the application it said that it was adopted in March. Um, let's see here on the outreach and engagement. You outreach to library, schools, hospitals, American Legion, public media. My question, any community centers, museums, any other non-traditional partners? One of my questions. You do have an audience development committee. Um, you, like I said before, you work with human services organizations and at-risk youth, domestic violence, financial hardship, providing free tickets, educational talks, Harmony and Healing, which I mentioned earlier, I guess is a music and wellness program, attracting new and underserved audiences. One of your goals is to include all members of the community, which I had mentioned some of those other populations that you're trying to reach. And then I was looking at your local policymakers and public support. And so I see that you work with a registered lobbyist and the congressman for arts funding. And Barbara, you serve on the elected officials, on the board, elected officials support arts legislation, and you're in touch with the mayor, governor, and city council members. So it's pretty thorough. That's what I have.
Okay, thank you. Kenneth?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you guys seem to have really good partnerships in place, and you're serving a wide variety of audiences, especially in those underserved communities that have less access to these types of services, which is really nice. The emphasis on partnerships and programs with human and social service groups is really great. I'm curious to know what else you guys do or how else you reach diverse audiences, especially as it boils down to those DEIA initiatives. I think your programming seems fun and accessible. I also want to just say kudos to you all for the growth that you've experienced over the past few years. I also really appreciated the note on how selections are curated artistically for programming. I think the Composer in Residency project is a really great way to introduce new music to the repertoire of classics that you guys perform. I do think it would have been really helpful to have a work sample or several that featured audio visual, especially for an orchestra. It would have been nice to hear some of that music. Although the testimonies and thank you letters were nice and they do speak to impact, they don't quite show off artistic quality. Also would have appreciated getting a direct link to the organization's website as well to check that out. It's good to see. I think Dina just mentioned this, but the Audience Development Committee is really fantastic. You guys also seem to be shoring up some of your HR and administrative practices, which is really nice to hear. And I think to me speaks of a healthy organization capacity-wise. And I also really appreciated the note on the nice impact of the 2011 venue and ticket changes that were enacted years ago.
Okay, thank you. Mia?
Hey, just a few things to add here. Under the artistic excellence, again, would encourage you to think about in your narrative, making sure that you're clear about how your programs and services are responsive to the community, and also addressing specifically how you know your artists and programs have significant value to the community. I'm guessing you get that from your evaluation process, but tell us specifically what your audiences tell you about the value of the experience that you provide. I think that would be really helpful. Again, specifically thinking about the evaluation rubric. Around planning and evaluation, really wanted to see some specific key performance indicators / measurements in your strategic planning efforts to make sure that you're hitting your goals there. shout out good development plan. Really appreciated reading that. Under outreach and engagement, solid community collaborations, great audience development work, and I would echo the audience development committee, the use of that's really fantastic. And then really robust advocacy and education. I noted it's been 5 years since the mayor welcomed the audience. Bring them back if they're still in office. So,
She was there last month.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah.
good. All right, glad to
Yeah.
know that. So otherwise, really appreciated reading this application.
Okay, well, that then is, you now have about 10 minutes to answer any questions, make any responses.
Sure. Maybe I'll just start and then you can ask me any specific questions. So a few of you mentioned our audience development committee. It's been one of the joys of the last 10 years to specifically take that question of what members of our community are we not yet reaching, and then implement programs specifically to reach out to those community members. And so as a result of that committee, our Harmony and Healing program began. And Dina, that is a program of the orchestra. So we set aside a dedicated pot of funds every year specifically to send musicians into hospitals, rehabilitation centers, memory care facilities. And so some of those programs are, we take a small chamber group and we do a performance. And so when we go to Madonna or to Tabitha, they bring residents in and we give a performance, and it's much more informal. The musicians will talk between pieces, they'll take questions, they'll perform. And then there's also a situation like when we go to Bryan Hospital, we'll take one violinist into the cardiac unit and they will ask individual rooms, would you be interested in having a performance? And they'll go play solo Bach for someone. It's such a intimate and beautiful experience. It's one of our musicians' favorite programs that we engage in. Kenneth, I hear you. I'm so sorry we did not send any audio recordings. We've done so in the past and we should have done again this year. Particularly, it's been really special to have these recordings of these premieres from our composer in residence. You asked a little bit about what we're doing to attract diverse audiences. I think featuring our brochure looking diverse has been very important to us. And so as we have programmed the work of living composers, we've made an effort to find a wide range of voices. And we've been putting the composers' photos on our season brochure. I know a lot of times you get the artist photo, but we've really made an effort to include those as well. And we have extended invitations to, like the Boys and Girls Club of Lincoln, who are serving a very specific, audience. And we've said, listen, we have a young Black electric violinist performing with the symphony. We think that this is something that could really be inspiring for these kids. And so we do, although our social impact program offers tickets to all human service organizations, to all of our concerts, we do try to specifically target ones that we think could particularly benefit from those. I'm trying to think of any other questions that you brought up. I think, Dina, you mentioned that it would be nice to know exactly how the community has input in programming. With all of our partner organizations, we work with the Lincoln Youth Symphony to talk to them about what would best serve their students in terms of the side-by-side performance. And then we do have audience members who request certain pieces or certain composers, and our artistic advisory committee takes that into account when they're thinking about programming. And also it's really important to us to try to bring together other community organizations. I think we mentioned this in our application, but one of the highlights of our year every year is we feature an adaptive dance company on our Deck the Halls performance. And it's one of the most special things. I mean, it's special for our audience, but also just in terms of community building. That's one of our favorite things that we do every year.
All right.
So I don't know if there were,
yeah, go ahead, Barbara. Go on.
I was just going to say, I don't know if I've hit everything. So if there are any other questions that
Okay.
you guys had in your notes.
Panelists, do you have anything else you want her to address? Or Jennifer, do you have any comments? Anybody?
No comments from me. Barbara has done a
Okay.
great job summarizing it.
Everybody okay? Well, then, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. And with that, we'll end this session. And panelists, if you'll go over your scores and make any adjustments and then give me heads up. Thanks, Barbara and Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, it looks like everybody's ready. Sam, any chance that the next group is ready?
No, we do not have anyone from Mona in the waiting room yet.
Okay, which gives us, they're not supposed to be here till 12:05. Why don't you guys have, let's say 7 minutes, be back by noon, and maybe they'll come in a little bit early. Does that sound reasonable, Rachel?
I think that sounds great.
So you have 7 minutes.
Okay, and you said the Museum of Nebraska Art?
Yes.
Is the next one? Okay, I think he used acronym. Okay, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. What, you don't know the acronym?
But
Thanks
I
for
know we're
pointing
going
that out.
alphabetical though. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so I know our next applicants are in the waiting room.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, are you with us?
Sorry, yes, I'm
Okay.
with you.
Great, thank you. All right, Sherry.
Okay, everybody's here then? Okay, so Sam, let everybody in. Okay. We ready? I see Andrew's in. Okay, so next organization up is the Museum of Nebraska Art. So those who are representing, please introduce yourself, and you've got a couple of minutes to do whatever kind of an introduction you want, and then we'll get panelist comments.
All right. Well, I can start. My name is Andrew Donahue. I'm the Executive Director of the Museum of Nebraska Art. Thank you so much. Wonderful to meet you all here. And with me is Beth Quinn. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Beth Quinn. I'm the development manager here at Mona. So I'm just here to help support Andrew. I submit the grant application. So I thought if there's any questions about the technicalities of it, I can help with that.
Okay. So you have 2 minutes, whoever is going to do the overview and before the panelists jump in.
Okay. Well, just to kind of give you one of the most joyous updates we're able to share is the fact that the Museum of Nebraska Art is once again open to the public. We are thrilled to be open again. We had our grand reopening on this past Saturday, May 3rd, and best estimates and metrics we used, we had over 2,000 people visit the museum that day, which was fantastic. So an enormous crowd of great supporters from within our community, and really a diverse group of people from every different organization that we work with to people within our community. It really was a wonderful celebration. We had live music and wonderful times, educational programs happening in the community studio, and overall overwhelmingly positive reaction from the community. They've been waiting for this for quite some time. For over 3 years for this museum to return to Kearney. And it was heartwarming to see so many people. Then yesterday we received an award from Nebraska State Tourism, an excellence in tourism for what Mona does to bring arts and cultural tourism to the state. So we're really honored to have that as a part of what we do. We are very excited to bring all the programs and the wonderful pieces that we've created back to the community and to reintroduce Mona as a heart of the arts community here in Kearney.
Perfect. Okay, we'll go through then the panelist reviews. Then at the end, you'll have 10 minutes to answer any questions, make responses, whatever. Okay, we'll start with Mia.
Thanks for the update on the grand opening. I was rooting for you guys, saw that in your application, so glad it went well and you had a great turnout. I'll focus my comments around the 3 evaluative criteria buckets that we were asked to utilize as we evaluated applications. Under artistic excellence, you mentioned community engagement goals, and I sure wanted to know what those were. You didn't share those specifically, so would have loved to have understood, because recognizing that after a reopening after 3 years, I'm sure you have them, and I'm sure those are top of mind, so I would have loved to have understood those a bit in reading the narrative. You also speak to the challenges of rebuilding trust and engagement in programs after being closed for 3 years. Wanted to know specifically about how you're doing that or what the plan is that you have to do that. And then sort of a bigger note for this section and the entirety of the application. Is this organization affiliated with the University of Nebraska? And if so, tell me how exactly. I get glimpses of it in sections of the application, but I wanted to understand the complexity of this collaboration. It was a significant line item in the budget. I just needed to understand because I'm not from Omaha, nor am I from Nebraska, so I know nothing about you. So everything I learned from your narrative. So you want to make sure that you give me as full a picture of your organization as you can. Then under planning and evaluation, it's notable that you're regularly assessing programs. Wanted you to close the loop there and tell me specifically what you do with that information. How does it inform program or service development? Did appreciate seeing specific benchmarks on how you view quality for your organization. That was really beneficial in understanding, again, the artistic quality benchmark. Related to strategic planning, certainly appreciate the situation you're in as it is related to the planning process. I will say I was surprised though to see a capital project of this significance undertaken without some kind of plan in place. So I was a little surprised to just not see anything at all there, even if it's just a bridge plan. In the plan that was provided, I would have loved to see some specific performance measures or KPIs with targets, and then would recommend that to be in the next, those included in the next planning efforts that you do. Around development, I had some concerns with this section of the narrative, wanted to see some firmer plans spelled out with specific development and earned income targets. I recognize you've just reopened, but you've got to have some numbers in mind, I would imagine. So wanted to understand what those might be. Under outreach and engagement, strong evidence of community collaborations. I was super intrigued by the inclusion of athletic teams. Man, tell me more about that. That got me really excited. Because that's really some out of the box thinking and planning and programming. Tell me more. Didn't get enough, just didn't get enough of a taste of what that meant. Wanted or expected, I guess, to see some partnerships that had supported some of the new programming you're launching, because I presume that these programs that you've listed out in the earlier section are new programs, but I don't know that. But would have expected to see some collaborations maybe that supported some of that programming there. And if it is there, just didn't see it. You mentioned a wide range of participants that your programs are meant to address. I'm sorry, this is in the outreach and accessibility, but you really only talked about older adults and students. So fill in the gap between the young and the old, and tell me about some of those other participants that you're planning to reach through your programming. And then tell me about the education outreach you're doing for other audiences. I just mentioned that, so apologies. Under audience engagement, feels like this response kind of conflated outreach and audience development. And so there were sections in this response that might have been better for the outreach section. So that's just a note for future applications. Talk more about your methodology related to how you plan to address underserved audiences. I kind of missed that from both the outreach and the audience development. And then lastly, under advocacy, I said, okay response, but you're creative people. So tell me, what more can you do to educate decision makers in your community about the importance of public investment in the arts? Recognize you've been without a home for a few years, but I think there's a real opportunity for some out of the box thinking from this organization. Then that's all of I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Kellen?
Thanks, Sherry. And yes, a lot of the things that you were noticing, I was noticing as well. And I wasn't as familiar. You are not in Omaha. You are in a very small community. So I think that was really like telling to me. I did not understand that as I looked at the application, where your location was actually at. Because when I looked at your programming, I was kind of surprised, like, oh, whoa, these are like, where are the other groups that are kind of addressing some of these things? You're kind of a bit of a catch-all at a table, is what I assumed as I looked at this and like the community size and everything started clicking. And I'm like, I need to look at this a little differently, because you're also kind of bestowed to the partners that live near you. Like sometimes your programming is indicative of the area that you're at and who is hanging out with you. So the football team thing, the team sports made sense, because it's like low hanging fruit. Who's interested? Who's talking? What can we do? I thought that was really creative, and I felt like for your programming that seemed like you were kind of being the catch-all, but you were also open to a lot of other ideas, and definitely thinking out of the box in those terms, because you absolutely have to. And I just thought that was really brilliant. Planning and evaluation, yeah, you're in a weird place. It's awkward. I totally recognize that. I thought, there was some of the planning and pushbacking due to the timing and the addition, but would have liked to kind of understand what the organization had looked like prior to and how it's evolving today. But honestly, like, it felt very much like you are in like some really fundamental times for your community of like really growing your organization. So the one thing that for the community outreach I thought was really great, looks like you're working with like specific partners that have education and know what they're doing. But I'd encourage that, continuing that kind of what that rural hub for creativity could look like, and kind of the expanses of that, like more grassroots organizations to work with them, because you have just that ability to build in like this really like homegrown, homespun aspect to like this institution. But it's also founded on the people in the community and what they're interested in, and how to like really like make that so it's less about like, we're here to educate everybody, and almost kind of everybody's educating each other. I don't know. I thought the size of the community made the most sense to understand. So I wish that would have been a little more clear in the application. But I also had to think like, yeah, we're doing the whole state, but a lot of them are coming from like the same communities. So that would have been nice to understand. Otherwise, I thought it was a great application, and 5% of the population and an opening night, that's huge for your community. So I commend you. I think that's awesome. So
Thank you. Dina?
Congratulations on your reopening. Artistic excellence, under responsive to the community, I see that you have a lot of online activities with video and accompanying instructor materials, so you can reach those folks that can't come out to you. And live stream programs led by artists from your community studio. Senior and disability communities are served. And I did note that the application said must build trust with the community so they feel comfortable and valued. Programs and services support the organization's mission. You have partnership, art of well-being classes, collaboration with the World Theater, the collection, connection, lots of programs there. I have here our program and classes free. Your programs promote creativity and expression, cultural awareness. I have, is transportation an issue from some community members? Although I know you have an outreach and mobile component. Planning and evaluation. Feedback, direct conversations, surveys. I said, what about social media and the website? Your newsletter goes to school administrators, but I wasn't sure if it's sent to attendees or the general audience members. And I did see that you're going to develop your new strategic plan in 2025. You postponed it until the museum opened. In 2025, you're going to launch a new membership program. This is under budget, variety of revenue streams, $5 million endowment. I did see in the budget you had travel. I didn't know what the travel entailed. I can assume it means some something related to the organization, but I just wanted a little more insight on that. Outreach and engagement, the collaboration with certain organizations. Yeah, the athletics is very creative. Proactive plan for audience development. You are making resources available for neurodivergent. Community, you have an interactive gallery for small children. You offer art therapy, working with occupational therapy students to make art making tools for individuals. That's really awesome. And then attracting new and underserved audiences. An interactive gallery contains books in Braille and Spanish. You're going to look at your zip code tracing. I think that's a good idea to determine whether you're attracting new audiences. You have bilingual classes in Spanish and English, art classes in Japanese and Korean to support immigrant communities, docent-led tours in those languages. I think those are great efforts. And that's what I have. Feedback I have.
Okay, Kenneth.
Great. Yes, I will also say congratulations to y'all for reopening after all these years. That is a really huge and exciting feat. So congratulations. I think you're planning a plethora of events to attract audiences to the reopened space, and there's a lot of emphasis on popular and social and community gatherings, and those are really great ways to reintroduce your audiences to what it is that you do. And so there's obviously some really great opportunities for future partnerships and community building within all of those reopenings. So that's really exciting. I do think that the work samples that were provided didn't quite show the application or the organization in its best light. It's understandable that there may be less to select from, considering that you guys have been closed for the past few years, but it would have been nice to have been directed to the organization's website or seen some more videos or images of the collections and the facilities. I thought that the marketing budget line in the expenses was low for an organization of this size. So curious if you guys have anything to offer from that. And I also really appreciated seeing the multilingual offerings as part of their programming. That was commendable.
Okay, thank you. Then that gives us 10 minutes for you all to respond. Andrew, do you want to start?
Not sure where to start. Taking some furious notes here, and thank you. Thank you for that wonderful feedback. That's fantastic. Well, I'll shoot down the list here as such. Important to note, the institution itself was founded by UNK, was founded by UNK professors in
You
1970.
might explain to them what UNK is because they're not from
Yes.
Nebraska.
Okay. University of Nebraska at Kearney. And it was under a different name even then. It was Nebraska State Teachers College, I want to say. I remember trying to remember what was the name before it was UNK, Beth. It was
And then it was
That's it.
Kearney State College.
Kearney State. There we are. So founded by a group of professors at the University of Nebraska Kearney, Gary Zaruba, Larry Peterson, Jack Carricker, three individuals who thought that we need this kind of collection of arts to represent Nebraska. Under those kinds of auspices, it eventually became an independent 501c3, really first moved into this building in '86. The continuation of that relationship has been that every year UNK gives financially considerable amounts of support to the organization. So while we are an independent 501c3, it's anywhere from, I think it's 300 plus thousand that's devoted towards salaries of staffing, and in grand total, about $500,000 more that goes together, grand total, that goes towards the support of the operations, from facilities operations, IT, and various other things, offerings that help us to do what we do. So essentially, we are under the auspices as employees. We are under the umbrella of UNK, but we are an independent 501c3. So we receive a significant amount of financial contributions from the university here in Kearney. And really, that's a kind of a lifeblood of what makes it possible for us to do what we do. We expand upon that relationship by working with many professors, educators, resources from the university that allow us to host such programs. All those programs, as such, hosted in various languages. In light of working with international students, international department divisions, and then artists and educators from the university, as well as docents and tour leaders here in the community. So we're able to offer so much because of the way we partner our programs with educators through the university. Trying to think what else. So our community engagement metrics, it's difficult to say, yeah, we say we want to regain the trust of the community. In light of when the arts programs and a community that is clearly, shall we say, hungry for the arts and supportive of the arts, when the state art museum in your town closes for 3.5 years, those programs tended to find homes elsewhere. So there were a lot of community organizations that kind of picked up the slack and were offering things from art teachers in various organizations, where there are like Parks and Rec and those kinds of components as well. City of Kearney began to pick up those sorts of programs. Because there was nobody here doing those programs. And then there was a major staff transition as well, midst post-COVID as well, that kind of there was nobody here doing those programs. So now that we are quote unquote back, we're kind of regaining and reinstituting that knowledge with people that have gotten used to not having it here. We're trying to rebuild that knowledge within our community that those programs are once more happening on site, and you can please come back and join us once more. So there is an important thing that we need to understand how those metrics and how that message gets out to people. I won't delve too far down this kind of explanation, but on a personal note, having worked here for not quite a year and a half just yet, one of the questions that was put forward to me in my interview, I remember in October of 23, was in regard to strategic plan and this project altogether. And I thought it was a good question as well. What would you do first? Or would you try to build the plane while you're flying it? Because that's, in a lot of ways, it feels like those are some of the uncharted territories we're delving into. And I completely agree that having those sorts of important maps, those roadmaps in place, in hand, are what helps to guide and steer. And it's, by means of which you're listening to your constituents, you're listening to the voices of your community, and therefore you can build those programs and those components around that. So we've had to kind of work at that in a different direction, but we are very happy that we're now instituting that strategic plan that will set the map for this organization for the years ahead. And so that's well underway, and we're even looking towards some potential resources to help fund and support that process. So that's a good thing. We have some promising resources in that way. Let's see. It is kind of hard to understand what our numbers might be, but there were a lot of good studies. There were a couple of feasibility studies as such to kind of understand before even entering into this process what positive metrics we could expect to find. And so based upon those plans and in those feasibility studies, the organization chose to move forward with this expansion and chose to move forward with making this process happen at arguably a very difficult time, regardless of closures with COVID and everything. So thinking outside the box and inviting in athletic teams to run programs, that's kind of how we do. That's how we operate. To think about differently about how those sorts of partnerships and things can take place in this space. And that's actually a big thing that we're building upon, is those collaborative kinds of programs. How we make that possible, and that may not have been clear. A few of these sorts of things have kind of come sort of fallen into our lap within this last year, like potential and programs we're now building with the University of Nebraska Medicine. So University of Nebraska Omaha and UNMC, we're building kind of this modus operandi, if you will, of educational programs to this understanding of well-being, of well-being and health and the direct link, the proven link between the arts and well-being. And so there are wonderful established programs in that realm, but now we're kind of delving down that road to make that more or less the overarching theme of our educational programs, this art of well-being and this understanding of where the arts infuse quality of life. I say to the team often, we're not saving lives, we are enriching lives. And by enriching lives, we are saving lives. We are being an arts institution that does bring a quality of life to not only our community, but to our state. Let's see. And it's important to note, well, I don't know if it's necessarily made clear. So the official declaration came in 1979 that we were officially the state art collection. So we're one of only two that we know of, us and Wisconsin, that actually have a museum devoted towards a full collection of art of the state. So there's a Wisconsin Museum of Wisconsin Art. I'm butchering their title, but then there's us, the Museum of Nebraska Art. And it's exclusively devoted to the arts of Nebraska. And so by that mindset, we have kind of a statewide understanding of our audience that we're looking towards. And we're looking to really press on, which is why things like advocacy become so important. We're going to lean into that because we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of that. And we've made it known now. We have a good friend, I guess we could say, and a good supporter in our former mayor of Kearney, who's now a state senator, Stan Klaus. While he is a supporter, he's a voice of understanding from the community, and thereby leaning into that friendship and our connectivity with other of our state representatives. We're really going to lean on an emphasis of this in the next couple of years as being the State Art Museum. So much as going towards, we want to make a second declaration or a rededication of the 50th, but we also want to place a greater emphasis on the support that could come from the state for specifically this museum and for the arts in Nebraska. Looking towards where we can develop a long-standing contribution from the state or an increase of the support from the state, because this is something the entire state needs to be proud of. One of the things that we talk about in travel, I think it's mentioned very briefly, the discussion of I myself and other members of our team going out and ensuring that we are at these forefront of organizations and gatherings where this becomes evident. I presented at last year's Nebraska Tourism Conference. I was a keynote speaker there. And then also presenting at our State Advocacy Day. I'm on the board of the Mountain Plains Museums Association board. I'm the current president of that board as well. And I'll be presenting at our conference in October in Omaha on the effects of the Museum of Nebraska art within our community. Very happy and looking forward to that, but we'll have, 5-6 months under our belt of operations by that time, and be able to showcase exactly what this project has had as a visual effect and actual effect upon our community. So we'll have some tangible metrics to be able to present there and to be able to present in our region as a foremost arts institution. So those sorts of things, advocacy and travel, are very important to us. I was not able to go to National Advocacy Day this year, which would have been a very important year to do as such. But we other obligations here in the community kept me here, as not the least of which being a grand reopening. But it's important to us that we serve as advocates for the arts, that we serve as advocates for our discipline, for the voice of the arts in the community, and by which that we represent myriad of different communities and myriad of different artists across the state. So here in Nebraska, I think a lot of the emphasis places in the eastern side of the state, in Omaha and Lincoln, being kind of the two premier cities of the voices of the arts. And there are wonderful and amazing arts communities there. But this museum here in the center of the state is devoted towards the voice of artists from edge to edge, from end to end. McCook and Sydney and small towns and communities all across the state. So it's important to us that that kind of representation and partnerships are created all the way across the state. That joint ventures and community programs happen in various places. We have friends with the State Historical Society. We're doing plein air painting classes at Chimney Rock Historic Site, and ensuring that these kinds of programs and things are seen across the state, supported by the state art collection and the state art museum, so that all Nebraskans recognize this is something to be proud of in that way.
Okay, I think you have
Oh,
one final thing because we're pretty much out of time.
Sure. I'm passionate about it, so it gets to be a bit of a
Obviously.
subject, so I apologize. But I mean, there's a lot of efforts that we're making where we are forging new ground on behalf of this institution. And there are a lot of ways where if we jokingly say it's everything everywhere all at once for us. We are building the plane while we're flying it. And we don't take lightly the fact that some of those processes are things that we would have, in an ideal world, been able to place all together in kind of a timeline that makes a little bit more sense. But we are doing these processes strong. We have a lot of great community partners in our support, a lot of great people in our corner that are helping us to make these sorts of things come together, and setting a standard, a momentous standard for the years ahead for Mona.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Elizabeth. We appreciate it. So that'll end this part of your session. And panelists, if you'll review and adjust any scorings and let me know when you're finished. Thank you again, Andrew and Elizabeth.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you so much.
Sam, you can also stop the live stream at this point.
Yeah.